Hey, folks. Oh, make sure my mic is on. Oh, that should work. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I don't know if that mic was on or not. We'll find out. Happy Sunday. I got a few things on here to talk about tonight. Why is my chat not moving? Is my chat moving? I don't see. Okay, here we go. YouTube is doing a lot of weird stuff lately. I just want y'all to know they've changed so much stuff with how everything works. So I feel like I'm playing catch up. Now I remember on the last live we ran into the issue of the ads just randomly popping up during the live. Apparently, there's nothing you can do about it. The only thing I can do is change the frequency of how often they occur. So I tried to put it on the lowest setting. So we'll see if the pop-up ads slow down a bit. Because yeah, there's no option to turn them off. Otherwise, you just don't get any monetization at all. Okay, let me turn this down. Let me know if my sound is acting weird or not. By the way, for some reason, all my equipment has been just doing its own thing today. So in the event that this live dies off, we'll figure it out. All right. Where do I want to start? Oh, I'll do like 2 or 3 quick shout outs and we'll keep it moving. There's a lot going on. I don't think I'm gonna be able to cover everything tonight for the sake of my sanity, but we're here. Somebody said we miss you when you're not around. I just did a video. Look, I did a video y'all didn't watch. That's why. Y'all better watch that Edward Bloom video I worked on. Let me see. Ready for Calvin to drop some knowledge. We're gonna try. What up, Corey T? Kayla, what's up? What's up? What's up? Shay, what up? Karen Sherman, what up? What up? What up? What up? Nan Nelson, what's up? What's up? What's up? Thank you, Lex. 1192. They said they watched. I appreciate it. Yeah, those pre-made videos. I like to do pre-made. I like the pre-made videos. How do I say this? I enjoy doing the lives more because they're less work. I can just sit up here for however long I'm going to sit up here, say what I need to say, and go to sleep. The pre-made videos are better, though, I think, because I can really emphasize the content of what I'm talking about through the visuals and the support and everything. I could also just use different software for the lives, and then you could have the visuals and stuff pop up. But something about the pre-made videos, they come off a lot more polished, in my opinion. But, it is what it is. I get more subscribers from the pre-made videos. The lives kind of is more so for the people that have already been rocking the boat with us anyway. You know what I mean? But I'm not complaining. So yeah, I like the pre-made stuff a bit more. I think that's, if I have to like show off something, it's that. But let me see. Amar Bird said, as folks have said, YouTube and Google are both playing jinky right now. Yeah, there's a lot going on. I don't know what that's about. Somebody said, what's the video called? That's the Edward Bloom. You tried it. I think something about ego and policy. Neat. Okay, I'm actually going to jump right into everything because I got a lot to cover. By the way, y'all won't be seeing me for like the next week or two. Look, Mama's in town, so Mama gets her sun time. So I'll be back after she's gone because I won't be able to get anything done because if I go on a live while my mama's here, she's going to be walking all in the camera in the background. And who you on there talking to? Who's that? I ain't got time. So no, she won't. We're just going to take a break. But I'll upload a new podcast episode to the channel. Anyway, book club people. Next book club session is October 30th. We are still reading The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. We'll be going over chapters 6 through 9. This next segment will be recorded. It's not going on YouTube, but it's being recorded for those who are in international timelines that don't correlate with what we're doing here, at least on the East Coast in the U.S., or at least the U.S. time zones. Because I know there's some people that are in Japan, some people that are in Southeast Asia that always want to join, but the times just don't work. So that live is for them where they will receive a link of the recording for those who want to participate. So like I said, for anybody in the book club, it's never going, at least the sessions where we're on here, on Zoom or whatever, those are never going on YouTube because not everybody is comfortable being on the internet. And because a lot of the books that we read do carry heavy conversation, a lot of people are very open and vulnerable on the book club with their thoughts, their viewpoints, their experiences. So I don't want that on YouTube for the world to see because it's not a conversation for the world to have, at least in that context. So like I said, it will be recorded. If you don't want to be on camera, just keep your camera off and change your username to something fun on the Zoom. That's all. Let me see here. I didn't get to talk about it, but I got a chance to go to the Toni show earlier in the month. Great show. Only thing that had me a little nervous because we were sitting in like the higher upper section. So by the time they got to those like the New Jack songs and did like It Feels Good and everybody's up dancing, I was getting paranoid because like the whole floor is like shaking. And I'm like, is that supposed to be happening? Because I was getting like vertigo because I'm like, all right, I'm trying to enjoy this, but I feel like we're about to fall through the floor. But you know what's really interesting, and I hope people don't fight me on this. So we saw the 2022 lineup of Toni last year. This lineup wasn't Raphael Sadiq. I don't even know who all was in it, but it wasn't like the group that's out now. And so we saw that show, and oddly enough, it was actually a really good show. I love the band. There was a brighter sound with their band compared to this show. Now, I still loved Toni, the original lineup. Like, it was great. Raphael Sadiq sounded amazing. Dwayne Wiggins did his thing. Like, it was a great show. I personally just, for some reason, I liked the music more at the other show. Now, I don't know if that's because the other show was at a smaller venue. It was at Bethesda Jazz and Blues Festival, that place, whatever place is called. And it's a venue that holds maybe, I don't know, 300 or 400 people. So it's very intimate. So I don't know if maybe because it's a smaller environment, the band had a richer sound. This Toni show was at the MGM Theater. And, you know, I will say it was still a dope band. Like, they had a brass, it was like a 10-piece band. They had a brass section. What I loved is they had LaToya London as one of the supporting vocalists. If you remember that season of American Idol in 2004 with Fantasia, you remember that was the season where they had like the three divas. You had Jennifer Hudson, Fantasia, LaToya London. And everybody remembers the night Jennifer went home because for some reason, all three of the best singers on that entire season were in the bottom three. And I was so pissed. That was the first time I ever voted on American Idol, and that was the last time because Jennifer Hudson had sang Weekend in New England the night before, and I voted and dialed a little number and everything and got cussed out by my parents because they thought they were going to get the phone charged from me dialing some number. And Jennifer Hudson went home. And then right after Jennifer Hudson, I think LaToya London might have gone home like the week after or maybe 2 weeks later. And, you know, Fantasia ended up winning. But, you know, she sounded amazing. They did Lucy Pearl's Dance Tonight, so she kind of did Don Robinson's part. LaToya, I wish she would have had greater solo success because I liked her music. She had a song called Appreciate that I thought was really, really nice. And she had a great cover of All By Myself. And, you know, she's been doing a lot of stuff. So kudos to her. I will say, again, the show was excellent. They did my favorite Toni song, which is I Couldn't Keep It to Myself, track number 8 on the Sons of Soul. It's one of my favorite songs, actually, on that album in general. The stretch from Slow Wine to that song, because I think it was like Slow Wine, Lay Your Head on My Pillow, and then Couldn't Keep It to Myself. That whole 20 minutes is just, it's bliss. Go back and revisit that album, please. You will enjoy. But it was a great show. For some reason, I enjoyed the musical arrangements of the bootleg Toni more than I did of the real group. But it was still good. And again, the band was still excellent. Like I said, lots of, you know, just things that they did with the arrangements. Raphael did a lot of his solo material as well. And I love that they did a lot of album cuts. My only other critique too, I wanted it to feel a little bit more like a band. To me, it felt like Raphael and Friends. And I get it. He's the face of the group. But like a lot of the band was in the back, and even the way the lighting was set up, you couldn't even see half the folks in the back. Like, I didn't realize that was LaToya London until after they announced it was her when she finally came down to do the Lucy Pearl bit. But that's just me. It's still a great show. If they're in your city, please go and see a show. Like, for people who are fans of music and love the idea of musicality and key changes and modulations and band arrangements and playing in minors or playing in majors or just doing all, like, it's a great show for people that are fans of actual musicians and people who have a musically inclined ear. That's the highlight of the show. So it was still an amazing show. So definitely check them out. I also got a chance to go to New York. Some people kept asking who's the lady in that picture. The picture that I posted, that's Ruth Carter. So Ruth Carter is the woman that was a costume designer for Black Panther and the Malcolm X movie and Wakanda Forever. She's, you know, she had won the 2 Academy Awards for both Black Panther films. So it's kind of cool. I got to meet her at an event. I kind of explained this a little bit for those on the book club, but one of my children from the center has just been this exemplary student and just overall wonderful person. And so they have been competing for like a national competition, and it has a bunch of regional rounds, and they just kept winning all the rounds. And let me just tell you, that girl has her college paid for. She has an extra, I'm not even gonna say how much money she has right now just to play without, just from winning these competitions. But because she made it to the national level, you know, they had the event in New York, and there's all these different celebrities. So it was kind of cool because Ruth Carter got to introduce her, which I thought was amazing. I'm like, imagine being 18 and because she's now a freshman in college, but imagine being 18, you have like a 2-time Academy Award winner introducing you as you present and do a speech, which was dope. I also got to meet Susan Taylor, chief editor for Essence, which was pretty dope. And what was cool, a lot of these people were really down to earth. Like me and Ruth Carter were in the same hotel, so we had got a chance to connect and chop it up at the reception before the event. And then when everything was over and I was, heading back to the hotel, she was outside with her friend waiting for her friend's Uber. So me and a few people that I was with, we all just hung out some more outside. So I think that's cool. Who else was there? Gladys Knight was there. Ashanti. Oh, and then I felt so stupid. There were two WWE wrestlers. Kofi, you guys know his name. Kofi something. He's like WWE World Champion thing. I sat there and talked to these two for 20 minutes at the reception and didn't even know who they were because I don't watch wrestling. And I felt so stupid because I didn't have this whole conversation. And I was wearing, the wood beads. So we were talking about the beads and where you can go and get the beads from. And then I'm at the, eating this little plate and they introduced and they walk on. I'm like, wait, that's the people I was talking to. But anyway, it's cool. It's dope when you can kind of see like plants or seeds that you planted get watered and then they water themselves and grow into all these great things. It's dope when I can see like kids just grow and shine and thrive and be great. Like super dope. So it was a really great weekend. I literally just got back today, so I didn't know if we were gonna make this live or not because I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little tired. But we're gonna make it work. Anyway, let's jump into it. So actually let me read a few comments and then we're gonna jump into I want to start with Bishop Sycamore. Let me see. That's right. They said enjoy mamas because mamas don't be caring about no privacy. No, don't let no mail go to my house. She'll still come. Somebody said, do I live with my mom? Oh no, I've lived on my own since I was 18. Minus the 1 year I came home from college unemployed. Other than that, I've been on my own. My mother lives in Georgia. I live in DC. Say hey to your mama. I'd love to see your mama live on here. She's got a great sense of humor. She really does. She knows how to embarrass you too, though. She will embarrass you. I remember she came to my center one time to talk to the kids. She told all my business. I was like, Mama, I still got to work here after you leave. Nan said, if we wanted to share an article with you, how can we email it? Send it to calvinbmichaels@gmail. Or if you follow me on Instagram, you can just send me the link via Instagram. All right, let me see. I'm gonna keep it going. I'm just trying to start on a smooth note because we got a lot of heavy stuff to cover. So I'm trying to keep the energy bright on here. Corey T said, Calvin sounds like they was playing around with the song too much, like Lauryn Hill. No, it wasn't even that Toni was changing the arrangements because I love when people mix up the arrangements. That's why I like even like a Janet show because her band is always the songs are still gonna sound like themselves, but they're gonna add so many enhancements. To me, it was something about the drums felt empty. I can't explain it. It was just like something didn't like it was like the mids or the middle was missing somewhere. All of the instruments were there, all the keyboards, the bass guitar, the electric guitar, the brass section, all of that stuff, percussion, all that stuff was there. But for some reason, I don't know if maybe it was just where I was sitting because maybe I was too far in the back and the sound just doesn't carry the same way. But then again, when we saw Jill Scott in the same venue, I mean, we had seats that were a little bit closer to the front, but it was still kind of in that back segment. Jill's band was like hitting, like on point. So it was like I could feel everything with her band. For some reason, something didn't connect with this band. Maybe it's the sound. Because I know they knew what they were doing on the stage. Like Raphael Sadiq is not just gonna have anybody playing in his band. He had a lot of really notable people in the band as well. So I don't know. It might just be where I was sitting, all right. Kofi Kingston. Okay, I think that's the name. Thank you. Hey, Cal, when's your next So It Happened? I don't want to talk about it. No, just kidding. No, it's coming. I know you guys have been waiting forever. I apologize. But since so many additional things had happened in the world, I kind of paused on that because then I ended up doing the video about the Billboard thing, with them struggling to find new artists. And then we just did that whole bit with, what's his name? The Jan Winter. And that whole deep dive into just Black music in general. So that took more time than I thought it was going to take. So that cut into some of my So It Happened production time. But it's coming. It is coming. All right. But it's gonna be good. I mean, I told you I've filmed it like 4 times. I just needed it to be right. So again, with Mariah Carey, it's such a nuanced narrative. Like there's just you'll see when it comes out, but there's a lot that I think people had misconstrued with everything that happened to her around 2001, 2002. So I just want the story to be right. So it's not coming out till we get it right. I want to do right by the artist. That way, and which is crazy because then even when you give the artist their flowers and make sure you pay attention to detail and just don't put anything out there, folks still come when they're mad. Like I had Janet fans letting me have it on the Janet one. I was like, you don't get out my face of all people. If anybody's gonna do right by Janet, it's gonna be me. But whatever. All right, like my sinuses feel so all over the place. It was, I think, something about being in like that cold New York air for too long. It's like it's got me messed up. All right, Bishop Sycamore. So, if you remember, I think we did a video on it a while back, but there was a school that went viral, or it really wasn't a school. It had gone viral where there was this game on ESPN. It was Bishop Sycamore High versus IMG, I think Academy. Let me make sure I got the name right. And I didn't even write it down, but I think it's IMG Academy. And mind you, IMG Academy is like this top tier athletic training school. This is a school for D1 athletes. Like it is the top tier or one of the top tier locations for high school students that have aspirations to play for a D1 school. This is their dream school to go to, right? Parents pay all kind of money. There's all kind of millions going into this school. Like I think a company just bought this school for like 9 figures, right? And so there's a man named Roy Johnson who tried to start his own kind of academy. But the issue is that, and I'm trying to not spoil the full doc. It's on HBO. It's called BS High. So anyway, they have Roy Jones or Johnson, and so he tries to start this school. And the documentary kind of goes into detail about how he's just kind of been a scammer for years, and he had a different organization he had started with. And with this organization, he literally had people in the church signing over like life insurance policies to go to him. Like when they die, you get the life insurance policy, so on and so forth. But they eventually get to this school and he goes and he recruits all of these youth from all over the country that have aspirations to play football. A lot of, Black kids that, are coming from rough environments, coming from situations that are not so great. And so again, he shines like a beacon of hope for a lot of these kids. And this is like kind of almost even like you could say like a second chance program, or almost like a JUCO or JUNCO. Like, like JUCO, which I'm not a fan of, to be honest, because I think they charge entirely too much for what they're trying to do. JUCO is kind of like junior college football league, but it gives people an opportunity to play for that league and then hopefully transfer into a larger D1 school. But like some of those schools are like $30,000 and $40,000 a year. I had one of my kids tell me they were going to go to Eureka, California, to one of the. I was like, do you know what's in Eureka, California? Nothing, but enjoy. He didn't end up going, but so JUCO is kind of one of those things, but that's on a junior college level. But his program again is like high school, so students that may have had to do like a 5th year of high school. Well, now they call it reclassing, but so all these kind of students that you had some that were trying to climb the ranks and get in how they could fit in. You had some students that were actually doing okay and just saw this program as a great opportunity to have a shot at a D1 school and everything. So he gets all these students from all around the world, right? And long story short, he portrays this academy to be a real school. Like he even does tours of the building, but it's not his building. And these kids are traveling all around the country playing games. And it turns out like everything is a mess, right? Like the food is terrible because, mind you, he's burning through money as fast as it comes in. He's getting all this money because he's charging these kids $20,000 and $30,000 for this program. And mind you, it gets deeper in the documentary, but just understand, I'm not trying to spoil it, but like PPP loans are included in this documentary, and it's not coming from Roy Johnson. It's coming from the students. I won't give the details on how that happened, but just know it's a lot of foolery, a lot of shenanigans that was taking place. But like he currently right now has like 17 different creditors that are suing him. And so, like I said, the school's like not a real school. The kids weren't really getting adequate food. They talk about how there was like certain dishes that were just absolutely terrible. And if the kids didn't eat it, they just put it in the fridge and then they had to eat it again the next day until it was gone. I mean, they didn't have the right equipment. One kid literally had a toy helmet he's playing with. They didn't have any medical staff. They weren't even going to class. Like there were no classes. The kids were just chilling for like months in training. And mind you, all this has been portrayed to be a school that's going to provide all this, and none of that took place, right? And so it just was, you'd have to watch it, but it's absolute chaos. But the point that I was getting at, some of us remember the clips in the game had gone viral because the team was just, I'm not going to say they suck, but they did. Like, again, these are kids that are coming from all over the country. They're on a team, and now they're playing with some of the best teams in the country as far as high school. So again, the IMG Academy, and even the schedule they had for games was playing like the most competitive schools in the country. And so what ended up happening, they have this IMG game. Somehow he didn't work his connections. This game ends up being, broadcast on ESPN, and that kind of exposes his card because the entire world sees how horrible this team is. And mind you, these people are like 19, 20 years old, and they're getting like stumped out by 15 and 16-year-olds. And so it's a disaster. There's lawsuits. The state of Ohio steps in. There's all kind of crazy stuff. So definitely check out that documentary. The part that got me, though, is like the man has no remorse. Clearly, something is a little off up here. Because if you watch the documentary and you watch the way he processes information and even his response to the students who had not so nice things to say about him, because also the lives of the students that were on this team all pretty much got ruined. It ruined their chances for actually getting into an academic school because for a lot of students, by them being at Bishop Sycamore for that year, it wasn't a real school. So when they tried to get into a lot of these schools, a lot of the schools were like, no, this wasn't a real school. So some students actually had full ride sports scholarships to some really great schools, and schools were rescinding their offers. And so a lot of the students, I'm trying to not spoil it, but it's just that good. It was a mess. I was like, that's what it's like. You got to just be careful sometimes with who you get behind. It also reminds me of just how cutthroat the sporting game is, whether it's high school or college. I cannot remember for the life of me the name of the docuseries, but it was on Showtime. We covered it a while back. It was produced by LeBron James, but it followed the lives of students that were trying to be D1, or they were in D1 and lost their position in D1, or they were doing that fifth year. And like there were so many stories. Like one guy, he came in as a walk-on at his university, and he ended up on the D1 team, but because he came on as a walk-on, he wasn't qualified for scholarship, so he didn't have any money to eat or anything like that. And then, of course, somebody super wealthy felt bad and tried to help them out, and he helped them with their apartment and stuff. And when the school found out, he lost the scholarship because it went against the NCAA rules, and it just shows him trying to get back into football. And he eventually, I think, does arena football league. But interesting, it follows like kids that are like high school preparatories that are trying to play. So it's crazy how cutthroat all of that is. I'm not one to be a dream killer, but I know with a lot of my kids that have aspirations to be athletes, I'm like, so in addition to being an athlete, what else would you also like to do? Because I always just tell them, let's say you make it to the NFL, the average career is only a few years unless you become some mega superstar. So let's just say, you make it in and a few years later, you want to go into something else. Like what else do you have on board? Because by 26, 27, there's a new chapter of your life that's starting that may not include the NFL because maybe you've phased out or jumped into something else. What's next? You still got a whole lot of living to do. So I try to phrase it that way. I don't want to tell the kids, I don't, because when I do that number of statistics and it's like, okay, you have 10,000 high school athletes. I'm sorry, you have like 1 million high school athletes. And by the time you get to the college level, it's 10,000 different athletes. By the time you get to the NFL draft, there's only 150 slots. So as you start doing those numbers, it starts to sound a little scary. So I try not to be a dream killer, but I try to also be a realist, but be a realist that gives them solution and options so that they can just always be prepared for whatever comes down the pipeline. So yeah, definitely check it out. It's called BS High on HBO. I'm going to pause and read some comments, and then I'm going to drag Kevin McCarthy for a few minutes. Why are ads running? We're not doing that. Hold on. Whatever. Somebody said in other news, I'm going to see Beyonce's Renaissance film. I'll probably check it out, but I'm not going to see it when it first comes out in theaters because I'm not dealing with it. Them fan bases are going to ruin the movie. They're going to be in there fighting it when somebody messes up the mute challenge. They're going to be singing through the whole thing. I would rather watch that from the comfort of my home. So y'all let me know when it's on Netflix. Like, yeah, I do not want to do that one in the theater. Because even when This Is It came out in theaters, which was fun, that was still kind of an event too. I mean, people were like Michael Jackson costumes and stuff, and people were getting up and dancing and stuff. I'm like, y'all, all right, cool. I get it. It is what it is. Let's see. Calvin, show me love. Hey, Avocado Queen, show me love today, please. The lady I was cat sitting for, the cat is dead. Having a bad day. Okay, the cat died. Okay, best wishes to the cat. Ouch. Okay. Um, let me see. Oh, Ashley Cunningham, I agree too. She said the coaches from BS High were weirdos. Cause then he had this one dude that was like the sidekick who was totally down with all the shenanigans. Like when I say no accountability for like ruining these kids' lives and their moms' lives, because mind you, a lot of these kids have a bunch of debt too and everything because of them trying to pay to run the school. Like no remorse. But yeah, that was crazy. I don't know what that was about. Absolute chaos. Um, Is this the same man that had the kids stealing food? Yes, the kids had to shoplift because there was no food at the school. Now you got the kids committing crimes. Like what? But he got in trouble for shoplifting too. Like man, embarrassing. What? Does somebody know about Mary J. Blige that we don't? I don't know what that's about. But we love Mary around here. Mm, what happened to Mary J. Blige? Y'all have to tell me. I don't know. Oh, let me see. Somebody said Google Mary J. The latest news she announces is a scholarship for Hampton University female students. Good, just to let Edward Bloom find out about it. Yeah, excellent. Um, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Sorry about these ads. I can't help them. Kevin McCarthy. So, first of all, that's what you get. You know, I've always said, my beef with a lot of people in politics is a lot of people are in politics and they're in it for themselves, to line their pockets, to boost their ego, to grab onto some element of power that they want to hold on to. Because a lot of people, in my opinion, have inferiority complexes, and so they latch onto elements and spaces that give them power. And Kevin McCarthy, in my opinion, was definitely somebody who was in that space. He's somebody who, again, he compromised his integrity for power. When he ran for the House, we watched the nonsense unfold. They already didn't want him in there, and you watched him do all these backdoor deals just to have that Speaker of the House position, which kind of just showed he was a weak speaker because he couldn't do anything. He literally was at the mercy of a handful of people that he made all these deals to. So, Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, like stupid, right? And so, backtracking, because this is actually almost old news at this point. We had everything going on with the shutdown. Government was supposed to shut down Monday. That's what it was looking like. GOP and Democrats were not really agreeing on anything. The budgets were way apart in regard to what was going here, what was going there. And so it looked like there was going to be, a shutdown. What ended up happening, if you're talking about the GOP side, the GOP right now, which is so interesting because I said this years ago. This was when not Mitch McConnell, Mitt Romney. When Mitt Romney lost his election, I said the Republican Party is going to start splitting in two because you're going to have one. Because remember, when Mitt Romney lost, they released this whole research study that they had, and they're like, oh, the study that we have within our party is we need to be more inclusive because we're too white. We don't include anybody else, and everybody else thinks we're racist. So our next move is going to be to diversify the party and to try to, connect with other groups of people. That initially was the Republican goal, and I was like, what's going to happen is they're going to split. You're going to have some who try to go in that direction. You're going to have some that go further the other way because, again, people want America to punt. People don't want not people, but the racist demographic of America never wants to see another person who's not white serve as president, right? But then all of that shifted because then you saw Trump get into office, and so they pretty much ditched the whole let's include everybody plan and said, let's just jump straight to white nationalism. So then we get all of these crazy extremities of politicians. You get Marjorie Taylor Greene and people like Jim Jordan get more power and all this other stuff like that. And so literally going back to the shutdown, so you have one segment of Republicans, which they still have terrible ideas and laws, in my opinion, but theirs are not as terrible as that extremity pocket, like the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and all of them, or the Lauren Boeberts and all of them. Even though Marjorie at this point is kind of, she likes that idea of power too, so she started latching on to Kevin because she felt like she could get some leverage and climb up as well. And so, they have this very just outlandish bill that's never going to have any kind of, bipartisan support, but Republicans had a majority in the House. So had the cuckoo extreme Republicans and the Republicans that claim they're normal been on the same page, they could have passed the bill. They couldn't. So what ended up happening is, boom, they get leverage with the Democrats, right? The Democrats are like, all right, we don't like what y'all got either, but let's meet in the middle somewhere. So Kevin McCarthy makes a deal with Democrats, and by kind of ignoring the cuckoo demographic of the GOP party, they're able to get enough votes to pass a temporary bill. Not even our budget is still going to be a mess. We still got to come back to this in like another 35, 40 days. But at least until November, the budget is temporarily safe, which this is going to be chaos because now we're going to come right back to the possibility of a shutdown right before the holiday season, right around Thanksgiving. It's going to be a mess. And so Matt Gaetz is like, oh, you've turned on me. We're going to show you, right? So then he's like, he does his whole speech about how he's going to get Kevin McCarthy out there. And Kevin McCarthy, bring it on. That's what he tweets. Bring it on, right? He's certain that he's going to be able to keep his seat. Now, this is where he messed up. For some reason, he thought since the Democrats kind of met in the middle with him on the budget that all of a sudden they were buddy-buddy. And then rather than using that to his advantage and trying to extend somewhat of an olive branch, in my opinion, you're never going to get both parties to meet in the middle on anything because the policies that they want are so far apart from each other where it's just whatever compromise they ever get, it's going to suck for everybody no matter what it is. But rather than utilizing that, he starts talking trash. I'm not doing anything for the Democrats. They will get nothing from me, blah, 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 blah. So Democrats who I've been lighting up lately because I keep saying they're always too weak on everything, they're like, okay, well, Kevin says we're not getting anything. So when it was definitely evident that Kevin would be ousted if he didn't have Democrat support or Democratic support, the Democrats were like, well, we're not voting for him to stay because we don't like him anyway. Because again, he's done a lot of terrible policy anyway as well. And he's been full of nonsense as well. Like, again, he, along with that 128, definitely voted to overturn the election on January 6th, over here doing a bunch of nonsense, trying to be stupid, right? And then again, the whole situation where then everything with January 6th happens, and now all of a sudden he's trashing Trump, and Trump is responsible. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, he's in Mar-a-Lago on his knees begging. Like, how much power do y'all want to have? Right? So he's just always been on some nonsense. And then he, again, all these backdoor deals he made to get his speakership because it took 15 votes for him to get in because even his own people were like, nah, we don't want you. Nah, we don't want you. Nah, we don't want you. Nah, you don't want you. Okay, like Aaliyah's try again has taken a new meaning because he tried again and again and again until he compromised himself, got locked into all these crappy deals. And hey, them crappy deals came back to bite him in the behind. So that's exactly what he gets, in my opinion, like the stupidness, right? And so what makes it even crazier, we really don't know what kind of loony person is going to be after him because as much as I can't stand Kevin McCarthy, some of the next options are even worse. Jim Jordan is the scum of the earth. I don't understand why he hasn't been held accountable for all that sexual misconduct at that wrestling program he was a part of. I don't understand how he even has any position in office. Like, a lot of these people that are possible options are even worse. So I'm like, it's chaos either way. But Kevin McCarthy is stupid. He really thought he had that in the bag. I'm like, so here we go. You're like, what, one of the shortest speakers of the House? And people kept trying to say, oh, well, he had a really small majority, so it wasn't going to work. And I'm like, I hear that, but Nancy had an even smaller one. She had, I think, a 4-seat majority and still got stuff done. So, sucks for you, but good riddance. Like, these people are like selling themselves out for power at the expense of the people. That's the crap that be pissing me off. It's performative, it's theater. A lot of it, like, understand, like, a lot of these people in office, please understand, they're not here for us. A lot of them are not. I think there are some that genuinely do care. I think there are some that mean well. The problem is a lot of them are already bought out. A lot of them are tied to too many PACs. A lot of them are tied to too many lobbyist groups, too many corporations, too much black, I was about to say black money, but that's the wrong term, dark money. Tied to just too much nonsense. And so even when they mean well, there's nothing they can get done. Even some of the ones that I sometimes try to have a high perspective or opinion of, they still let you down. So it's a mess, but it's just, where do you even start? But it's going to lead me to another conversation because, again, we keep talking about the idea of people being obsessed with power and not knowing, when to fall into the space that they fall in. And there is a certain individual who, at least for the last 3 years, I kept saying, please retire. Please retire because Father Time was coming. And it's nothing against anybody of a certain age, but I just personally feel that if you won't even be around for 10 years of the policy that you implement, then maybe you should step down and let the next generation come in. And so we have this politician who does not step down. They stay in office, and now we start seeing them pretty much being rolled to the floor to vote, and people are literally propping them up. And now she has passed on and gone on to glory. Diane Feinstein, like, at least for 3 years, I've been saying she needed to retire. She did not need to run for re-election when she ran. And here we are. And the challenge that I have with that is nothing against her wanting to do great work, I guess. But again, we're now learning another hard lesson, the same lesson we learned with RBJ, because recognize that she was on the Senate Judiciary Committee. What does that mean? Why is that important? Okay. One of the reasons why I say these elections and these positions matter is because then you get into the conversation of judges and appointed judges, right? And so when she was still functioning, right, Democrats had a majority in the Senate Judiciary Committee. So it was 11-10, which meant that you could continue to pass, and appoint these judges that Joe Biden was putting in. At this point, he's put in 140 judges. But now with her not being there, right, that compromises everything because everything's a tie. I want to read something in regard to the policy because there was also a policy change in regard to this conversation. Let me see here. Where did I put it? And of course, it disappears. Where did I put it at? I just had it. Hold on. Here we go. Of course. All right. I think I just took the wrong picture of it. All right. Here we go. All right. In Biden's first 2 years in office, the Senate had a special rule to deal with tie committee votes. That's where we're at now, because now it's 10-10. Even though the new woman has been appointed to the Senate, she's not in the Senate Judiciary Committee, right? That rule allowed nominations in the judiciary to go to a vote in the full Senate after only 4 hours of debate on the Senate floor. Senate Democrats used this rule to move many judges to a vote, including Justice Jackson. However, when the Senate started its new session this past January, it did not include this special rule, which means there's no quick resolution of committee ties. Senate Democrats could try a much more convoluted procedure to discharge the tied committee vote, but that would involve unlimited debate in the full Senate, which means Republicans could filibuster the process. And given that a filibuster can only be broken by a vote of 60 members of the Senate, it would be unlikely that Democrats could successfully discharge a tied vote. Democrats are not without other options, though. Each has the possibility of being blocked. They could try to replace Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee, but that would be subject to a filibuster by Republicans as well. Earlier this year, when Feinstein was sick and there were discussions of a temporary replacement, Republicans said they would not allow it. Will they change their tune now, given that she has died? No. In the past, senators have routinely allowed replacements in these situations, but we know that the past norms don't necessarily hold any longer, especially with Republicans fearing the possibility, no matter how small, that President Biden could get another Supreme Court appointment. So this is where we're at again. The idea of people not knowing when to gracefully bow out. When you've done your work, done your time, pass the freaking baton, because here we go. Yeah, Feinstein, who's no longer with us, right? So now any conversation around judges is compromised. People may not think that's a big deal, but understand the last video I just did in regard to Edward Bloom and the nonsense he has with the Fearless Fund, the fund that was there to ensure or support Black women business owners by giving them grants of $20,000 or $25,000 to help their businesses in regard to venture capitalism. The judge that shut that down at the appellate level is a Trump-appointed judge. So recognize these judges are getting lifelong appointments. And again, depending on what person puts them in office and what the credentials are, you don't really know what kind of luck you're going to get with some of these judges. And when you talk about the last administration, we watched Trump put so many people into positions of power that didn't even have any credibility or any experience in their field. We watched Betsy DeVos get put over education, right? You watch Ben Carson get put over HUD. They said put the Negro over the public housing and all that bit. And so, they got them trying to dismantle public housing. You got Betsy trying to sell off public education to private companies and everything like that, and trying to call it school choice. And then you got Amy, who's on the Supreme Court, who has never even litigated a case, never served as a judge, barely did any. The privilege. And here she is as a Supreme Court justice, nice and young too. Young. She's gonna be up there for a good 50 years messing up stuff. And it just goes back to even RBJ. Obama got in office and said, hey, you thinking about retiring? You starting to get up there. And, oh, no, I'm going to be a fighter. And, then people start latching on to him. You're being ageist and you're against women and all this other stuff. And then what happened to RBG? Father Time came in, right? And what happened after Father Time came in? We got another Supreme Court appointed. It's just people know when to bow out gracefully. And just I'm sick of everybody. Everybody get on my nerves. They get on my nerves so much, right? So it's just a lot of foolery around here. And this is why I'm always just like, I get it, because some people are like, we're tired of following politics because it's draining and it seems like there's never anything good that comes out of it. But again, that conversation of cementing, it's whether you have the energy to deal with the nonsense or not, the nonsense is still going to be taking place. We're just going to end up being collateral. So, you know what I mean? You might as well fight against it. I'm going to pause and read some comments, and then I'm going to jump right into another lawsuit, because just like I said with the Edward Bloom bit on the last video, he was not going to stop. And other groups are also going to start showing up and doing any and everything they can to pretty much roadblock any element of progression when it comes to the Black collective. So give me a second. Let me read some comments, and we'll keep going. Somebody said basically this was the Fire Festival without the festival. As far as that's Roy Jones and the Bishop Sycamore. You know, speaking of, and it's crazy because I always say you got to be careful with who you associate with, what you get behind. I will never forget. I think it was 2019, and one of my friends was on the campaign for somebody who was running for city council, and so they were having this mixer at Half Smoke, which is the spot in DC, right on like Florida and Georgia. That same spot I did that video on that time where the guy was complaining about the go-go music playing, and the city tried to shut the music down, and then that started the whole don't mute DC, and then Mochella and all that stuff came about. But anyway, so we're at Half Smoke, and we're all hanging out talking, and some guy comes, this really, really tall dude in the suit comes, kind of jumps into our conversation, and he was telling us how he was like a event organizer and stuff like that. So, you know, I think at the time, somehow he got on the subject of music or something. And at the time, I think I was just about to release the hardcover, like my second album. And so I gave him my business card for like some network and stuff. And right as I gave him the card, he starts talking, and he's like, yeah, because, you know, I'm planning this event and Beyonce's going to be in it. Jay-Z's going to be in it. Rihanna's going to be in it. I'm going to have the Obamas there. We're about to take over FedEx Field, and then we're going to move to the National Mall. And so he's saying all this stuff, and it's starting to sound a little suspect to me. Like, okay. And I'm like, when is all this? You know, we're in the planning stage. It's going to be in the next 3 months. I'm like, what? What's going on? Turns out, oh boy, was, I don't know. But my friend was lighting me up because she was having a feel that she's like, you just gave him your card, huh? Man, this dude, like, when I went and did the background just to kind of like look up and see who this was. I mean, this dude has so many charges and felonies, and he was a member of one of them crazy, I shouldn't say crazy, one of those like mega Christian centers. He was a member of one of those. The church had a restraining order against him. He had all kind of stuff going on. I think he was also battling a few things upstairs as well. But I was like, I just gave this Negro my card, and he's telling me he has the pull to bring Beyonce to DC next month or in 3 months. It's going to be a concert with Beyonce, Jay-Z, Rihanna, and the Obamas are going to be there. I'm like, what kind of, okay. So yeah, don't be just be giving you a card. And I was crazy because I was like, dang, my phone number is on that card. Look, I had everything blocked. Like, don't hit me up. And he actually had invited me to like some Zoom meetings while they were going to do the planning. I didn't go on them, but clearly the event never took place. I don't know what happened after that. But I'm always running into people who end up being like some kind of scammer or something. Like one time, I don't know if I said it on this live before, I went all the way to Atlanta one time for a music conference, ended up running into this one guy. Again, this is before I was even coming out with the second album. This was like 2018. And this guy was like, oh, I do music, you know, blah, 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 blah. And everybody knew him at this conference, even the music execs that were from the labels, because you had people from Interscope and all these different labels and stuff that were there. I went as somebody who was a producer. I was just trying to connect and make music for other people, but I was still working on the hardcover. And like, so he tells me all this stuff, and then I start side-eyeing, because then he starts talking about, yeah, well, if you pay me this much, I can put you in the Spotify Pro. I'm like, okay. I end up seeing the same guy on American Greed like a few years later. I'm like, what is, you know, American Greed is that show that's on, I think it's on CSNBC, or it might be MSNBC, one of the two. But that's the show with the people who go and they scam people and do all these crazy things. I'm like, so be careful with who y'all be getting behind. Folks be selling folks a dream, selling pipe dreams for real. Anyway. What, I got a troll? I ain't worried about it. Trolls always be pressed. Somebody said, how is he not in jail? And this is about Roy Johnson, the Bishop Sycamore School. They talk about in the documentary, but at the time there was no law against creating a fake high school and starting a sports program with that fake high school and then getting TV rights to be on ESPN. There's no law against it, or at least there wasn't. I don't know if there's one now. So there wasn't much that they could do. Smarty said you have to add more to their dreams and their future vision. Exactly. Like, and this is in regard to like talking to kids about things they want to do, and just you want to give support and give options and help them find pathways. I think the biggest challenge for anybody that's a young adult or a teenager that's trying to figure out what's next is a lot of the aspirations that people have sometimes don't have a traditional route, right? If somebody wants to be an actor, there's not a traditional route to get to Hollywood. If somebody wants to be an athlete, there is a traditional route, but it's extremely competitive. And in the event that you don't make it through that cut, you still have other options in regard to things you can do that are still closely related to what it is that you want to do, where you can still be in proximity to those spaces, doing additional work that you may like or something that parallels that sport. Or maybe you just connect and eventually get in. Like, there's all these different parallels. Somebody who may want to start their own restaurant chain or something like that. Like, a lot of these don't have, when I say traditional route, what I mean is if you want to be a lawyer, there's pretty much a traditional route. Go to undergrad, get into a good law school, rank highly at that law school and pass the bar and likely and pass with a great score. And as a matter of fact, try to pass the bar in multiple, regions, because there's different bars for different regions. A lot of people always do the Minnesota bar because allegedly that's the easiest one. I don't know if that's true or not, but, people like to go to different regions, and then God willing, if you've had the success, there's going to be a law firm that really supports you. And then your goal is to get to one of the big law firms. And if you're trying to make the big money, you go into corporate law. You know what I mean? So that is a pretty traditional route. Like, because at least going to law school, passing the bar, and getting your JD, that's kind of like, as long as you have that and you've done well with your academics, it's likely you're going to end up in that career field, right? And so, like I said, a lot of younger people don't have traditional goals anymore because society has changed. There's a lot more influence in regard to entertainment and athletics, and even that idea of influencing and what's happening with the changes that take place in social media. So there's a lot of routes that are not technically traditional. So I'm always like, try to create as many pathways for them to choose. So even if one pathway doesn't work, they can hop right into another one and keep going, as opposed to the pathway doesn't work and now they feel like life is over and they stop right here and never go anywhere else. That's kind of where I'm at. Let's see. Why is this? Oh, I'm gonna skip. Okay, that should skip that one. All right. I think I just hit something where it says the ads are skipped, so hopefully we won't be getting any more of those. Let's see. All right, yeah, I'm gonna just skip the ads. That's too much. Yeah, YouTube needs to go ahead and change that back. I don't know why they always change it between them and Twitter. Just leave stuff the way it is. Lord. I don't think they're going to put Hakeem Jeffries in there. No, they're not going to. Not with GOP still being the majority, unless there's some meeting in the middle. We'll see, but I don't think it's happening. All right, I'm gonna keep going, just because we got a lot to cover on here tonight. Yes, man, homeboy was scamming. I was like, what kind of nonsense is this? Man. Y'all are lighting up whoever the 6079 Smith W is. I haven't even seen a comment from them yet, but all right. Poppy said, and Trump pushed 200 judges and all were white. Well, that's expected, of course. Somebody said, side note, yes, go Twins. All right, I'm going to keep going because we need to keep it moving. Somebody, course question said, but Roy had to have committed fraud against the students. And if they went to school debt, there has to be wire fraud. He had to have made false statements. I need a smart DOJ lawyer to look at the case. We'll see what happens with that, because this is all 2021. And mind you, the school was in existence for a few years. We just didn't know about the nonsense until it was on TV in 2021. right? So we'll kind of see where that goes. But I don't think that documentary did him any favors. If anything, that would encourage people to go in and investigate other things, right? I think he just recently filed for bankruptcy as well. Somebody said they're charging because they're trying to force people to subscribe. All right, I'm gonna keep going. So remember how I said that they were not stopping with Fearless Fund and affirmative action and everything else that they have sued for in regard to people who just want to stop any element of progress in regard to Black progression, right? So now we have this new case. I'm going to read some of it, and we're going to just jump right into the conversation because there's going to be a really familiar name you guys all hear. All right, so let me see here. All right, do I want to read? Which side do I want to read first? I don't think I want to read the full thing. Okay, that one's the corruption bit. All right, I'll read this one. All right, DEI, legal fellowship lawsuits cast shadows on BOPOC law student opportunities, Black, Indigenous, people of color. I will say I support the idea of diversity programs, but I do think a lot of them also kind of water down the pool, and eventually Black folks end up still getting pushed out in favor of other minority groups. So I do think that is my one beef, because I don't even like the phrase like BIPOC, because again, it goes back to the idea of there's white and then there's everybody else. Like that's kind of, I don't like that. But anyway, getting to the article. A longtime conservative legal strategist challenged race-conscious college admissions in the Supreme Court and won. Now he's challenging diversity fellowships too. All right. The American Alliance for Equal Rights sued two law firms over their diversity-based fellowships. Now, if we paid attention, this is the same group we heard before. Less than 5% of practicing lawyers are Black. Diversity fellowships aim to help more Black, Indigenous, people of color individuals enter the field. AAER, that's the American Alliance for Equal Rights, says the fellowships offered by Morrison and Forrester and Perkins Cole are discriminatory. Experts say removing diversity legal fellowships will lead to greater financial and social barriers for BIPOC students hoping to enter the field. After the U.S. Supreme Court ended race-based affirmative action programs in university admissions, conservative legal groups are targeting institutions unrelated to the ruling, raising concerns about diversity in the legal sphere. Students for Fair Admissions, SFFA, created by legal activist Edward Bloom, took Harvard and University of North Carolina to court over their affirmative action admissions program. The Supreme Court heard the case this year, and on June 29th, it overturned affirmative action in university admissions, undoing a 40-year precedent. All right, remember that for later. Bloom founded an additional group, the American Alliance for Equal Rights. After his win in the Supreme Court, AAER sued law firms Morrison, Forrester, and Perkins Cole in August for their diversity, equity, and inclusion fellowship programs. According to the American Bar Association, less than 5% of practicing lawyers are Black. Other racial minorities make up 10% of the field. In contrast, the U.S. Census Bureau reports that 14% of Americans are Black. The number of Black, Indigenous, and people of color lawyers does not reflect the general population, a problem DEI fellowships aim to help with. Perkins Cole reports that 66% of its fellows are racially diverse, with 13% being Black, a much more representative number. Fellowships are often coveted opportunities for students of all races and backgrounds to further their studies and careers while receiving some compensation. In a field where many racial minority groups are underrepresented, these opportunities can be especially impactful for Black, Indigenous, people of color students in legal studies programs. Let me scroll down a bit here because this is let's see, there's another piece in here I want to cover. Gene Lee is the president and CEO of the Minority Corporate Counsel Association, a nonprofit that aims to increase the number of people from underrepresented groups in the legal field. According to Lee, these fellowships are considered a step toward equity, ensuring that talented individuals can pursue a legal career regardless of their financial circumstances. Many students of color have had significant financial need. Fellowships help alleviate some of the financial burden that is oftentimes a barrier to entry for many of the Black and brown students. Fellowships from law firms Morrison, Forrester, and Perkins Cole offer stipends to help ease that burden. But in a sphere where Black, Indigenous, people of color students are already underrepresented, attacks on affirmative action and DEI fellowships can slow down that progress even further. I think a lot of people of color are going to be deterred from receiving an education, especially an education that they think will prepare them for the type of career they want. A University of Los Angeles Black Law Student Association President Michael Stallworth told Best Colleges. I'll put this link to this article in the description and kind of just talk about a bit more about how that's going to affect the diversity in the playing field. But it goes back to, again, what I was saying, where, again, when it comes to race, there is no precedent, which is why, again, that conversation of not tapping out and always having to kind of be involved, even when you gain or you make gains or you make progress and some things get signed into law, you still have to keep your eye on everything, because you can't ever get comfortable, because the minute you get comfortable or get caught slipping, somebody's already creeping up in there ready to undo. So you've had somebody, again, like Edward Bloom, who, again, affirmative action, voting rights, fearless fun as far as trying to regulate who's allowed to receive grants and everything. And now we're going after fellowships, because understand, law school is expensive. A lot of people don't get full rises to law school, even if you are a great student, really, right? Pretty much any terminal degree, pretty much, it's already hard to get funding for a lot of them. And these things are expensive. This is when people go into a lot of debt trying to further themselves in education. So here we are, where there's a fellowship that's supposed to kind of help even the playing field. And again, it's under attack. And what do? They use the very same terminologies that we use to fight against racism. And then they switch it around and flip the script. So now by fighting racism, it's racist. By fighting racist institutions and racist policy and trying to seam, rip, and gut racist policy and structures that was backed by law, all of a sudden that is racist because it doesn't include everybody. So the demographic that still benefits from all of it gets to also benefit from your demise when these programs get struck down. And then again, it kind of, again, continues to water down the playing field or water up the pool with everybody but the people that actually need to benefit from these programs. And so here we are again. So this is why I keep saying, like, again, don't check out. But another conversation is follow the money, because it's interesting how a lot of this is all tied together. So I'm going to just keep jumping. So remember, we talked about Kim Paxton. This was the elected official in Texas that was up for impeachment, right? And then he got off, right? Then you find out there's money behind it. We did a whole live on it, but I found some more stuff that gets a little deeper, because then you have Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who also took $3 million, by a PAC that was more so in favor of Paxton staying in his position. And so the next two people I would like to introduce you to, in addition to somebody like an Edward Bloom or some of these folks that always type a bunch of nonsense, are Tim Dunn and Farris Wilks, right? So how connected are they? This is going to get really crazy because we're about to go on a road trip, so stay with me, all right? Let me get to my little articles here. Where's my piece I want? I put all my notes in here, and my notes are backwards, so I have to work the opposite way. All right, here we go. So when we talk about that Texas case where you had the Texas House, the state house and everything, as far as the state senate and everything, every Republican state senator and over half of the Republican House members in Texas have taken money from Dunn and Wilks. Again, Dunn and Wilks, those are the two that got all the money. So again, I'm going to read that again because we talked about politics and how things at a local level even carry weight. Every Republican state senator and over half of the Republican House members in Texas have taken money from Dunn and Wilks. Okay, all of Texas politics right now is compromised. For some Republicans, nearly half of their total campaign contributions are from these two billionaires, right? Crazy. And statewide officials and statewide officials are also in their pockets as well. Greg Abbott takes free trips on Wilks' private plane. Dan Patrick acquitted Ken Paxton after taking $3 million from Dunn and Wilks' PAC fighting the impeachment. So now we get to the two of them. They bought Paxton's acquittal for $3 million. Now they're pushing a private school voucher scam. Their ultimate goal is to be even more ambitious by transforming Texas education into Texas in general, into an authoritarian Christian nationalist state. Dunn and Wilks are oil and gas oligarchs. They are also both Christian pastors. These two billionaires are pastors that are spending their fortune enacting extreme Christian nationalist worldview policy in the second largest state in the country. All right. Let me see. Dunn and Wilks have zero tolerance for opposition. Their PAC, Defend Texas Liberty, recruits far-right candidates to primary Republicans who don't do their bidding. We've also seen that kind of action from Trump, who will go and get behind another politician if they don't align with what he likes, right? It's a win-win. They beat the moderate incumbent and force them to take an extreme position. Dunn and Wilks also control influential legal policy and advocacy organizations. One of those organizations argued in court that pharmacies should not sell birth control. The lawyer who argued the case also became a federal judge. He then later banned the abortion pill. Everything starts to come together. And they've even created their own right-wing media bubble. Dunn and Wilks founded the fund the Texas Scorecard, the top right-wing publication. I'm going to pause right there because there's a bit more I want to add. All right, now they're taking on their most ambitious project, replacing public schools with Christian schools. Abbott just called a special session to pass Dunn and Wilks voucher scam. Republican Sinbob, I don't know his name, Duell, said that they wanted to destroy the public school system. Dunn and Wilks are executing their plan to dismantle public education, fund manufactured controversies to discredit public schools, books, libraries. Everybody's indoctrinating the children. That's kind of that whole movement, right? Pass private school voucher scams to defend public schools. Kind of references what we talked about with Betsy DeVos as well. Just understand, if you can privatize all of public schooling, there's so much money to be made. In the same way that if they could have privatized the USPS as far as our mailing system, trillions to be made pretty much, right? Close public schools and shift our entire system into private Christian education. All right, there's been a lot of bad news out of Texas lately. Paxton's acquittal, private school vouchers, no exception, abortion ban, CRT hysteria, weakened gun laws, Christian nationalism, and it's all connected to a couple of billionaires. All right, and so I want to go a little bit deeper because it gets even crazier than that. There's two other things I want to share. All right, so the two of these individuals are connected to so many groups. So here are a few of them, right? So Tim Dunn, let's start with him. He is the board vice chair for Texas Public Policy Foundation, right? That's another one of them groups that just go and try to make the worst policy ever and run with it and then pay a bunch of people off to vote for it. Citizens for Self-Government, he is the co-founder of. First Liberty Institute, he is the board vice chair. Okay, that's a legal fund. Okay, that's paying off a bunch of legal funds for, funding a lot of cases for a bunch of crooked folks, right? He's also on the board of Grace School of Theology and Education. And then he is also a member of the Texas Scorecard, which is a media company. I'm going to get to that in a second because there's some shenanigans around that spreads out of Texas and spreads across the nation, right? He also contributes 90% of all funds to, again, defend Texas Liberty, which is a pact, all right? They're the people that have all the influence what happens in Texas elections. They're the people who are going to pretty much pick candidates and put a bunch of money behind them. So this is why when sometimes you see really good candidates run and then you are confused as to why they lost and why they didn't get a lot of support or why, they just get blown out of the water. There's a lot of money going behind a lot of the movements to ensure that these candidates never see the light of day, right? And then when we get to Farris Wilks, Texans for Fiscal Responsibility, PAC and Advocacy, he supplies 96% of all of their funds. Again, Texans for Fiscal Responsibility. Pretty much their goal is to cut everything, cut Social Security, cut public housing, cut, food services, all the services that they like to call entitlements. They're trying to cut all that and have the idea of fiscal responsibility where they say our budget is crazy because we're spending too much money taking care of everybody. They need to just, strap themselves up by the bootstrap. All right. Texans for Right to Life. He is 61% of all of their total funds. That's, again, conversation around reproductive rights. All right. Let me see. The Daily Wire. All right. He is the owner of. A lot of times you may have seen a Daily Wire clip somewhere or anything like that on the internet. Then this is where it gets interesting. He is also the #1 donor of PragerU. Now, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but PragerU is pretty much something that has slowly found its way into a lot of our K-12 institutions. I'm going to read something really quick, and then I'm going to jump right into this PragerU conversation. All right. As the school year starts, a controversial set of social studies materials are making headlines. Videos from the conservative media company PragerU. The company, which describes itself as an education media platform dedicated to promoting pro-American values, creates free online videos for children that cover a range of history, civics, and science topics. Some have hundreds of thousands of views. The materials came under fire after the Florida Department of Education approved them in July for use in the classroom as supplemental resources. PragerU leaders say that the channel provides an alternative perspective to what they see as liberal biases in schools and universities. But historians and researchers who study right-wing media say that the videos spread misinformation and are qualitatively different from other social studies materials that teachers might use in schools. PragerU is not a university, says Jonathan Zimmerman, a professor of history of education at the University of Pennsylvania Graduate School of Education. It is a political propaganda machine, and it promotes mistruths about climate change, slavery, and a whole host of other things. PragerU didn't respond to multiple requests for comment from Education Week. On its website, the company says that it has plans to expand into more states as an approved resource for K-12 schools. I'm going to read that one more time. On its website, the company says it has plans to expand into more states as approved resources for K-12 schools. How widespread are the videos? The State Board of Education in New Hampshire planned to vote on approving PragerU's financial literacy content. The board tabled the vote after vocal pushback from educators. Its media company, founded by conservative radio host Dennis Prager, aimed at reaching Gen Z audiences with videos that present, in its words, a free alternative to the dominant left-wing ideology in culture, media, and education. PragerU has become best known for its 5-minute videos, a series of shorts on political and social issues geared towards teenagers and college-age students. And now they also have clips for middle and high school students as well. These clips, which include titles such as "Social Justice Isn't Justice," "Are Some Cultures Better Than Others?" "Make Men Masculine Again," and "Income inequality is good." I'm gonna say that one again. Income inequality is good. All right. Kind of reminds me of that movie Vampire in Brooklyn, when the guy was like, "Evil is good," and they had a whole song, "Evil is good." Same kind of nonsense. Often feature prominent conservative pundits and media personalities. Those include both establishment conservative voices and those associated with the party's more extreme right wing. All right. Robert George, George Will, Candace Owens, Christopher Rufo, and I don't know his name. Dinesh D'Souza. That's the Indian dude that's been arrested a million times and got all the smoke in the world for black folks. All make appearances. Fracking billionaires Dan and Farris have donated millions to this media group, which also publishes videos denying the reality of climate change. PragerU has also received funding from the Linda and Harry Bradley Foundation, which has supported conservative education policy priorities, including the teaching of American exceptionalism. We've had that conversation many times on this channel. The platform has come under fire repeatedly for spreading misinformation. News organizations and prominent historians have fact-checked these videos on their claims about the United States history and the science of climate change. What kind of content do the kids' video covers? PragerU Kids, which is now being introduced in schools, content is separate from its 5-minute videos, but covers many of the same themes: American history, civics, financial literacy, social issues, and religion. This is where it gets interesting. One video in particular has drawn strong backlash. In it, 2 children go back in time to meet the abolitionist and activist Frederick Douglass. Douglass, who escaped slavery and famously spoke about the painful irony of a nation founded on liberty that holds people in bondage, in the video describes slavery as a necessary evil for the founding of the country. I'm certainly not okay with slavery, but the founding fathers made a compromise to achieve something great: the making of the United States. That's what they had Frederick Douglass on here saying. The Douglass character says. He goes on to say, sometimes things are more complicated than they might seem. The video is an appalling misuse of Frederick Douglass and mischaracterization of his role in U.S. history, said Andrew Hartman, a professor of history at Illinois State University. Other videos, he said, flatten the subject matter in order to inculcate certain values. He referenced one video about Booker T. Washington, the educator and intellectual who advanced for economic and educational opportunities for Black Americans after the Civil War. I'm going to stop there. But if you had the chance to sit through one of those PragerU Kid videos, it is the wildest stuff. I was about to say a different word. I watched one clip and it was a Christopher Columbus clip. So I'm like, first of all, this is already going to be some nonsense. First of all, they got Christopher Columbus sounding like Mario or Luigi, like the video game. And so there's a portion in there where the kid calls Christopher Columbus out for what they did to the people on the island of Hispaniola, because, they go over there and they discover this gold and riches. They start raping the women and cutting people's heads and stuff off and killing everybody. And he's like, well, that was one of the things everyone was doing. Like, that's literally how his voice sounds. The whole world was doing it. Yes, it was bad, but everyone was doing it. And then that was the justification for Columbus going and killing everybody and bringing disease to the entire Western Hemisphere. And then people following suit. And then all of the crusades and the missionary work that, would pretty much lead to the eradication of the Native Americans, as well as what would bring on slavery. They somehow try to justify it and say, well, that's just the way the world was at the time. So yeah, it's cool. It is what it is. Like, if you go and look at this BS, there are so many clips that literally just go against history. They go against facts. They will literally take something that is fact and just say it's not true. And then that's it. There's no follow-up. So PragerU Kids is now finding its way into academic curriculums across the country in K-12 institutions. So how we've said that there has been a constant attack on education, this is what we're talking about. This is why I keep saying, like, you can't tap out, because everything is so connected. And when I say people are cementing things, it's not even just cementing through policy. It's also cementing through the idea of even changing collective thought, altering and changing what was once collectively stood to be the polar opposite. indoctrinating children to, again, be in a space where they are okay with the shenanigans. It even goes back to how some of us were taught. I always say, when we go back to how many of us were taught about World War II and how we were taught about, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it wasn't taught from a perspective of the United States is still in this war, and so they drop these nuclear bombs that have never been used before on innocent civilians, and hundreds and thousands of people die, right? Hundreds of thousands of people die. Additional people end up getting cancer and dying, and mind you, the atrocity of this bomb are so bad, like people just get burned alive, their skin gets burned off, on instant impact. Like some people literally become shadows embedded onto rock and onto the sidewalks, and the radiation is just none of that was taught. We were taught these bombs showed everybody how strong America was and that nobody would mess with us again, and by September Japan had surrendered and we had won the war and we saved the world. That's the atomic bomb. That's what we're taught, right? And so you don't even look at it from the aspect of this ruined the lives of so many people. And these were not even people that the United States were fighting. These were the civilians that were brought. Because understand, with any war, right, it is the civilians that are collateral. You have the leaders and the people in leadership that are up top that are beefing, and then they start these wars and they make people go and kill each other who don't know each other. And they drop bombs on neighborhoods and so on and so forth. Especially back then. Back then, in modern times, apparently they try to say, oh, well, we have a classier way of doing war now. We only just target, facilities where we know the bad guy is, when in reality, they always have bad intel, and now they done blew up somebody's school with the kids in it, right? But again, like the idea in the conversation of war, it's never presented as this horrible atrocity where you have millions of people that die, that are affected, that, affect the next generation. All that's thrown out the water. It turns into a conversation of power. That's what we're taught about war, right? And then we're also taught that we're the good guys. And when we go into war, we're so good, we rebuild their country afterwards. And so you run around here thinking, oh, yeah, we were so nice to Japan. We helped rebuild their country. We were so nice in Afghanistan. We helped them out. We helped rebuild stuff. We helped rebuild stuff in Iraq. When really what we're rebuilding are things that have some correlation to U.S. interests that will put money in our pockets as a country. So it's a lot of nonsense. I'm going to pause because I've said a mouthful, and I'm going to, oh, no, we're skipping that ad too. We ain't doing that. All right. Okay, so they give me a button to say skip them. Okay. Y'all just know I'm listening out on my little monetization here, trying to keep everybody comfortable. It's okay though. All right, so like I said, you see the nonsense. Now somehow we have tied this from some people that are suing a diversity fellowship for law students, tied it and correlated it to how, pretty much a criminal that was in a position of power in the state of Texas was able to get away with their impeachment. They got off on the impeachment mainly because all of the people that voted in the impeachment hearings were already bought out by the same person who spent $3 million, by sending it to the lieutenant governor to ensure that, hey, I need you to do what you can do to make this thing go away, right? Everybody's already bought out. So then you have that element of shenanigans, which also then ties to Wilks and the Farris dude or whatever. And then we get to that, and that ties into all of these different packs and groups and everything that have all these different programs and movements. And then it ends up in the education system with Prager U, something that's pushing itself as an educational or academic institution, and it's not even one. It's just a bunch of wealthy people who want to push their views and thoughts and make them standardized through our curriculums. And now we have states like Florida that have now kind of taken on and have this in their curriculums. There's another one in there where they talk about slavery wasn't that bad. I was like, all right, the nonsense. All right, somebody say Congress is a mess. It is, absolutely. The fellowships that these student law firms offer allow students to go to work for civil rights and public interest firms. Okay. Who's blowing me up? I'll respond to that later. So they're also dismantling the law firm support for civil rights cases. Of course, because if you can get rid of the law firms that support civil rights cases, then you don't have to worry about those law firms and the all of the lawyers that do everything surrounding social issues. You don't have to worry about them being in the way of you trying to ruin the world. Get all of them out of here. All the civil rights attorneys, there won't be anymore. Article link in the chat yet? Oh, it's gonna go in when I finish this live. Because if I start doing it now, I still gotta go and move everything from the phone to the laptop. All right. Let's see. Somebody said, yeah, Trump Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos was trying to destroy public education. Let me see. Somebody said, Calvin, I know you will vehemently disagree. I am actually a Janet fan, believe it or not. But that whole family, in my opinion, represents the epitome of anti-blackness, especially Michael and Latoya. I don't think it's that. I think, if anything, that's more so they represent the symptom of anti-blackness. They represent the symptom of not feeling that if we're talking about phenotypes and features, not feeling that those are acceptable enough to be successful in a society that is still operated and owned and run by white folks. So I just think they already got enough going on internally upstairs with stuff that they all had to deal with as far as self-esteem, because it seems like every member of that family deals with self-esteem issues, Janet included, right? And yeah, they got a different story, in my opinion. And Janet's had one nose job, but I think, yeah, she's only had one nose job. Y'all be milking her, acting like she's been in there just chopping and chopping. If you look at that nose she got now, well, maybe she had two. That's the same nose job from at least the control era. It's just her. I think she might be filling or Botoxing or something here, so everything just looks. It is what it is. She can do what she want to do. That's what you want to do, Janet. Go be my guest. Anyway, let's see. This is why our government system is not a true democracy, but a reflective democracy. So much money and corruption. We live in such a dystopian society. By the way, in regard to the plastic surgery conversations, there's a whole lot of black folks who are getting plastic surgery. You just can't tell because they do things very, very subtle. I think one of the flaws that existed with the Jacksons and some of the choices they made in the doctor's office is that they did a lot of that stuff way back in the day before the doctors knew how to operate on black faces. But anyway, let's see. Funny how you started with the football scammer that directly leads to the distraction needed to get all these political policies ignored and passed. Yeah, I'm glad you guys already know about PragerU. Wonderful. So keep your eyes open with all that. Reba said, property tax cuts in Texas will affect funding of public schools as Abbott pushes vouchers using taxpayer money to charter schools. And it's not just happening in Texas, it's starting to spread everywhere else. And as they keep pulling money out of these public schools, what's eventually going to happen, the goal is you get enough people to pull their children out of public school and go into wherever with some of these vouchers. And mind you, the selection process for students to get into some of these schools is going to be very exclusive. So a lot of folks are going to be left out anyway. But you get enough people who pull out of public schooling, where the public schooling continues to lose tax dollars, because again, as each pupil gets pulled out of that system, the school loses the money that would be aligned for that pupil. And so eventually the districts become so just distraught with no resources, no investment, that eventually they start closing because they're not able to suffice. They're not able to sustain anymore. And so the children that can't afford or don't have the luxury to just jump into a private school or jump to another school or get selected, they end up becoming collateral. And we know who those children are going to be, right? A mess. Somebody said, divesting folks of political thought. These kids are supposed to grow up without knowledge or expectations. Yeah, keep everybody keep everybody just out of the know, and then they become adults that are removed from everything. And so as policy surrounds and circulates and does what it does, people just don't care. And I think another thing too, because a lot of policy also takes time, it also takes time to feel the effects of a lot of policy. So like look at Reagan, right? There were people who already had been saying since back in the 80s, Reagan was a terrible, terrible president. But there's a lot of people who are not realizing it until now, because you're just now really seeing the end result, right? A lot of times with some policy, like even with Trump's tax cut, right, from 2017, it was a system that runs well into what, 2027, I think, or 2025. Like it's an ongoing process where slowly, even though people technically got a tax cut. Well, the rich got a really big one. Working class got a smaller one, but their taxes are going to start going up if you're anybody who makes under 75, your taxes are going to keep going up until 2025, either 2025 or 2027. Somebody double check me on that. But again, like you don't feel that until you get to that 2025 window. So maybe in 2017, yeah, you enjoyed whatever little break you got, but later down the line, you're going to feel the effects of that. And also by cutting, taxes for the rich again, after it's been cut so many times, we've seen what's happened with infrastructure in the country. Amen for the current administration passing the infrastructure bill, but we've seen what happens when there's not as much money going into the investment of America. We start to fall behind on everything. And so we've gone through several administrations where you continue to get tax cuts for the rich. You continue to watch corporations take over our politics, buy out our politicians, buy out, all get appointed into presidential cabinets and get these positions that affect the livelihood of the masses. And now we're seeing the end result where we now live in this space where our politics are super corrupted. You have criminals and people who could give two F words, influencing our policy. You have people who can literally just be corrupt and be proud of it. And they know at this point, a lot of times nothing is going to happen. You have people who are trying to take over state houses and change, like we said on the last live. We have people who are now in positions of power that were once elected, where they are in a space where they sign legislation to now make that position appointed. And then they appoint people in those positions for lifelong terms. So there's all kind of nonsense going on. Everything is connected. So understand that. These ads, I'm sorry, y'all. I hope YouTube does something about it. Like, this is not gonna work every week, man. Oh, y'all are on this plastic surgery conversation. Let's just listen. Everybody got stuff they battle with. It is what it is. Nothing you can do about it. Well, hopefully, God willing, people can kind of have a better outlook on, life. I think too. Also, I will say, I think in the last 20, well, no, because now we're in this era of, and I'm not judging anybody who goes and does whatever they do under the knife, but we're also in the era of the BBL, right? We're in the era of a whole bunch of different things. So I think we're just in a society where everybody wants to look a certain way. They want to feel good about how they look. And so they go and do certain things to feel better about themselves. And I think everybody has a different journey, a different experience. I'm not one to judge. I will tell you, I'm not even going to lie. If I ever start balding, if this ever thins out, I might get on a plane to Turkey and get that hairline replacement thing where they do the dot things and give you some. I might do it. I don't know. But I saw how Akon's looking. His hairline was jacked up. So I don't know. Because I see the people got the one, the little, the wig thing they glue on that they put on. I don't know if that's going to work for me. Because I don't think I could pull off going bald. I think I got too much forehead for that. So I don't know if that's going to work. So we'll see. But so far, everything's holding on. I don't even have any gray hairs. The one gray hair I had was an eyelash, and it disappeared once I switched jobs. So we'll see. Patti LaBelle did get a good nose job. Yeah, she has one that looks very natural. Do what y'all do. I'm not anti-plastic surgery. I just know I'm probably never getting it. I'm fine with whatever. If I start looking old, I'll just look old. Like I had my good young years. Why are we still on this? All right. Listen, we are not slandering Janet Jack. Not on this internet. Nope. Especially after her band director just died. That woman is in mourning. Leave my girl alone. Anyway, we're gonna keep it going. All right. Speaking of voting rights, let's jump right into it, because if you watched the last Edward Bloom video, we talked about some of the things that they jumped into. We kind of went into the details of what happened with the Voting Rights Act and how, parts of Section 4 was struck down, how there have been lawsuits to strike down Section 4.5 and Section 4.4. Section 4.5, I believe, is the piece that's been struck down. And you have Clarence Thomas, who's fighting hard to get rid of Section 5 as well. But now Section 2 is also under attack. So what I want to read here, we're going to do a lot of reading tonight. All right. Now, mind you, this all starts back in December of 2021. Lawsuit filed on behalf of Georgia voters challenging the state's new congressional map enacted following the release of the 2020 census data, which, again, please understand, when the last administration purposely tried to cut the time in regard to taking care of census and getting an accurate representation of census, they did that on purpose, because by cutting the amount of time to get all of the responses, it's going to pretty much corrupt the information. The information is going to be compromised, and then there's not fair representation of which demographics are in what areas, what populations live where, how many people live here, how many people live there. And how does that affect us? That affects what happens when it comes to funding schools, when it comes to funding roads, when it comes to determining how many hospitals need to be in an area, when it comes to determining how many grocery stores should be in a ward, and depending on how much is the county or the state or the city going to invest in ensuring that there are adequate grocery stores in certain segments of town. This plays a role into, is this a region that should have public transit? This plays a role into how much needs to go into, first responder services. Like, so they purposely ensured the idea of like just gutting it and cutting down census just because it was all rooted in some BS. But back to my point. The complaint argues that the new map violates Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act because it dilutes the voting strength of Georgians of color, particularly Black Georgians, and denies these voters an equal chance to participate in the political process. Specifically, the plaintiffs argue that the legislature should have created an additional majority Black district in Atlanta metropolitan area under the Voting Rights Act because Black Georgians in that area vote cohesively as a block and are numerous and compact enough to form an additional majority Black district. The plaintiffs filed a motion for preliminary injunction asking the court to block the current map and order the creation of a new map that complies with the Voting Rights Act. The court denied the plaintiffs' request for preliminary injunction blocking the new congressional map, which means that it will be in place for the 2022 election cycle. In 2023, a trial was held from September 5th through September 14th. Litigation that could affect the map for the 2024 election cycle is ongoing. Now, here's where it gets interesting. All right. The defendants of the case call into question the constitutionality of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Nothing in the record, however, shows that additional notice of constitutional questions. Nothing in the record shows, however, that the additional notice of a constitutional question and service requirements of Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 5.1 have been met. Defendants are hereby ordered to properly comply with requirements of the compliance. So fortunately, in this, now this is as of October 10th, I think they need to comply before October 10th. So fortunately, in this case, the judge kind of threw it out and said that, with what's happening, you haven't really proven your case. But again, understand Section 2 is going to be next on the docket over and over and over, because again, you can just keep climbing the ladder till you get to the Supreme Court. And so just like we saw with Edward Bloom and some of his lawsuits, he would lose, he'd go to an appellate court, and maybe he'd win, or maybe he'd lose again, and then it goes to the Supreme Court. Or maybe he'd win and somebody would challenge him in the Supreme Court, and then he'd win that way. So understand, like, all of this stuff ties together. When I tell you these folks, they don't stop, right? They are in their nonsense. Like, please pay attention, folks. Section 4 has been under attack. Section 5, which again, if Clarence Thomas has his way, Section 5 is out of there. Clarence believes that we don't need the Voting Rights Act anymore. Everything's equal. That's where he's at. Now, it's hard to really jump into whether he really believes that or if he, again, is lining his pockets, because we see where a lot of his money comes from, and we see who his wife is and what she's tied to. A mess. Everything, when I tell you all this is connected, like, man. All right. Somebody said bald looks good. We'll see. Look, my hair started falling out and I go bald. We'll find out. Avocado Queen said, in her humble opinion. Listen, you are free to have your opinion. It's all good around these parts. All right. Oh my God, avocado. Okay. So if Black women celeb entertainers start getting light skin lighteners, would you have the same stance that everyone should do what makes them happy? I just think there's a deeper issue. Well, I feel like this should be another video. One, I'm not a fan of skin lightening. Like, to me, I'm really not a fan of plastic surgery either, but I'm not going to judge anybody who goes and gets it. Like, understand, especially people who are famous, who have the entire world watching them. The luxury that we get as people who are not famous, or who we get the luxury to step out the house looking any way we want to look. We get the luxury to kind of just, we can have a day where we just put on some sweats and a hoodie and go to the grocery store and look like whatever. It is what it is. Celebrities don't get that. My theory on Janet, while I'm at it, what's interesting, remember media takeout, and this is before she started doing whatever she's done. Whatever she's done looks like it's settled now, but she definitely did something around 2012, 2013. Anyway, but to that point, from about '07 to about 2010, especially media takeout, which is interesting because when you look at who the founders are of that publication, it answers a lot of questions. They constantly had posts about how she looked. They constantly had a post, guess the fake nose, guess the fake nose. And they have like a picture of just the nose, and then it would open up and it would be her face. And then I remember there was one article, they got a picture of her where she was coming out the limo and her eyes looked a little bugged out. And so of course they post that picture, and it was something about, oh, how terrible she looked, blah, blah, blah. Now, mind you, this is when she really, other than the nose, she really hadn't done much, right? And so there was constant publications about how she looked, how she looked, how she looked. Her book already talked about how she's never felt attractive. She's always felt that, everything was wrong with her face. So by being a celebrity and you constantly have media publications constantly putting things out about you, and you already have a pressure to remain perfect, and you're getting older, some people are going to go and do certain things. Now, as far as skin lightening, I think that's even a different conversation. I think that's, again, we have the conversation of colorism. I don't see people going and getting work done as being people who are anti-Black. I think that is the result of anti-Blackness having an impact and an effect on how people see themselves and how the world sees people. I think that's the bigger conversation. So I'm not going to fault the people who felt insecure and went to the doctor and did whatever they needed to do to feel better about themselves. I'm going to fault the institution that created a space where we were told we weren't good enough. Like, I think that's the bigger conversation. So even if we, and this might sound really, really silly, but even when you go to the early 2000s and all of us Black men were getting the mess curls in our hair as middle schoolers or young adults and everything like that, the idea of thinking our hair was too nappy, so we wanted to have curly hair. And what's so funny, we never knew we already had natural curl patterns because there were no products. And so we all went and got the S curls and put all the products in our hair and stripped everything and stripped our hair down to this really thin, fine texture, and we'll put that gel in our hair, and then we thought we were exotic going to school and thinking we were killing it. And if you had a studded earring, you might have put some hazel contacts in as well, because you had that idea of wanting to look exotic or looking like, oh, he's a special kind of one. So I think it's deeper than that. I understand what you're saying as far as the conversation of anti-Blackness in regard to how we're perceived with our looks. I 100% hear that, but I think the energy should not go to the end result or to the outcome. That's the outcome. And on top of that, not to get on to their business, you already hear the stories of how the dad already talked about how all of them look. She talked about in her documentary how they made fun of her butt. She just appreciated modern times having a bigger butt than other women. She didn't like how she looked for years until she got with Jermaine Dupri, who I thought was a great person to be with, because that's, in my opinion, when she seemed the most normal acting. But again, if you look at a lot of her costumes from back in the day, she's always covered up because she didn't like how her body looked. She's just now in a space at like 57 where she's comfortable wearing cat suits and stuff because, again, for years, she felt insecure about her body. She talks about being a kid on Good Times and them having to tape her breast down because she was developing a lot earlier. And for some reason, that played a role in her mind where she felt like, I'm not good enough. They think something is wrong with me. So I think with plastic surgery, because Janet and the Jacksons ain't the only people having plastic surgery. We can probably spend all day naming people. And a lot of folks have had surgeries that we don't know about. They just do things that are very subtle. And plastic surgeries are a lot more advanced than they were 20 and 30 years ago. So there are some people, because I know people love to bring up Little Kim. They love to bring up Vivica A. Fox. A lot of people, unfortunately, I think by the time they may have done some of the things that they have done, technology shifted and technology changed. So they didn't get the benefit of getting like the nice Kelly Rowland nose job, right? Or the Amory nose job. They didn't get that luxury. Or even Drake done went and chopped on that nose. I don't know who he thinks he's fooling, right? And so again, I have no judgment on people that get plastic surgery. People are gonna get, because then I think it gets deeper. Because then I think of women who have children, and a lot of times people always say, oh, all you gotta do is work out, and you can get your six-pack back. Some women don't get that luxury. Some women have children and they lose the weight, but that skin never goes anywhere. It just hangs and hangs. And they're like, you know what? I've done all I can do. I want to take care of the skin. They go and get that adjusted. So I think even the conversation of plastic surgery has different compartments that it's in. And I think it's different. Now, as far as skin bleaching, to me, skin bleaching, again, is the end result. The idea of colorism. And even our Black publications that we so beloved, they used to even advertise and market skin bleaching creams in the 70s, in the 80s, right? We're just now getting into a space where people are understanding that like Black is beautiful, right? We've always been told that. I think in the 70s there was definitely a resurgence of the idea of like black is beautiful. But I was just reading an article about even Motown and the imaging that they often wanted to have for the entertainers, right? Like, understand, blackness and perception of self is always going to be something that's ever changing. And so what I never want to do is get in the position or the habit of faulting people for, falling victim or becoming collateral to whatever system was in place at the moment in time. And so again, people are going to do what they do. And like you said, I do think it is a deeper conversation. Maybe it's a separate video, Avocado Queen. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who battle internal. Oh, there's an ad coming. We're gonna skip it. I think there's a lot of people who battle internally with their self-esteem. And I think when you bring in fame, which can be very cool. Look at the Shade Room and Hollywood Unlocked. They spend how many times have they posted a very unflattering picture of somebody and then they post thoughts right afterward? Like, oh, did you see so and so at the grocery store? And I don't know, they then had an allergic reaction. So one side of their face is swelled up. Thoughts. And then you just watch tons and tons of people just swarming. Oh, they look like this stuff affects people, even in modern times. The idea of wanting to be perfect. You don't think these Instagram filters and Snapchat filters are affecting people's mentality with how they look? There's a lot of people who cannot even post themselves on social media anymore without having some kind of filter to kind of enhance how they look. You got Facetune out there and everything. So there's like, it's such a big conversation. Maybe I feel like I know there's a channel that's maybe talk about this that has a better range than I do on this. I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna go back to the comments. And the skin bleaching, I do have. Oh, don't get me started. And then, especially within the diaspora, it becomes a deeper conversation because I talked about this before with even some of the kids that I work with. You had some parents who would skin bleach, and you could always tell because the skin on the knuckles never takes, and the area around the lips never take. Um, it's mess. It's a mess out here. All right. So I just want everybody to feel good about themselves, right? Um, Greetings from St. Louis. What up, St. Louis? All right. Um, Starberry said there's a correct correlation between skin lightening and social economic status. I don't blame people who use skin lightening as means of survival. Like I said, everybody's gonna have if you're in a space where that doesn't affect you, be grateful that you got into a space where you can stand on your own 2 feet without the influence of the world dictating how you do things. Like that's really good. That means you have that sense of self. Good for you. Like I'd say stand on it and be happy with it. Like um I wish there were a lot of people who didn't go and do some of the things that they've done to themselves under the knife. Because I feel like a lot of folks didn't need a lot of the stuff that they've done, but so be it, Um, I don't, somebody say he got Indian in his family. Let's see. I mean, all these people have done. Holly Berry got a nose done. Tony Braxton got a nose done. Tony Braxton got a breast done, then took the breast implants out because they exploded. Like all these people have done stuff, especially these celebrities. They do a lot of things. And now that you have more subtle procedures and stuff, where they can do like the ponytail facelift, where they don't even have to cut you open. They do a few things, and folks start having them eyes be a little bit more slanted. Look, Nicki Minaj and did all kind of stuff. Cardi B then did all kind of stuff. She's in a different category in that conversation. I meant to keep it with black folks. But yeah, look, Mariah done did stuff. Whitney got implants. Like all these people have done things. So, um, it is what it is. Um, y'all better be happy Michelle Obama didn't get plastic surgery. The way they spent time talking about how she looked, they stayed frying that woman up. Fortunately, Michelle had thick skin. They changed the makeup options and started giving her thicker eyelashes that kind of brought out the features of her face a bit more. But yeah, the world is tough. So I get it. Jay Lee said plastic surgery is one thing, but when you're specifically targeting your black features, it's a problem. I think I hear that, but then white people go and get their noses done. Britney Spears done got her nose done, right? So you have white people who also go and chop on the nose. Do I think chopping the nose down is, endorsing the idea of anti-blackness? I just think it goes back to again that conversation of being the outcome of a bunch of things. So I think everybody's circumstance is different. Like I said, I got a pretty broad nose. I like mine. I got my daddy's nose and my daddy's eyebrows and my daddy's cheekbones. So none of this is changing over here. We're gonna embrace what I got. But everybody's different. And I think what also sucks too, like I feel like somebody like a little Kim, I'm sure it bothers her that every time she goes on social media, somebody's posting an older picture of her of how she used to look, and then they always say Kim used to be so pretty. Like I'm sure that bothers you after a while. Like, damn, every time I come on here, y'all talk about how I look. So then she goes and does some more stuff, and man. Um, Queen said, I'm not sure if I call it anti-black, but a response to racism and colorism. Self-hate maybe more. Like for people who starve themselves to death thinking they're too fat. It's self-hate versus and oh, you know what's so sad? When I go to the gym, there's this lady in there. When I tell you, she has to be like 5'6". She's definitely like 99, 105 pounds. I mean, her legs are like the size of my arm. And every time I'm in there, she's on the treadmill, like just in there going hard. And I'm like, man, I mind my business, but clearly like she's battling with some kind of internal issue because she's so skinny that it's like sickly looking. And I'm just afraid her leg is going to snap on the treadmill. I'm like, man, so yeah, a lot of people deal with stuff. It's not my place to judge. Now, I do appreciate Regina Hall for keeping her nose. She's one of my favorite people, by the way. All right, we have to keep going. All right, let me get to some more foolery. But Avocado Queen, great. That was a great segue into some great commentary, by the way. So thank you for sharing your opinion on that. Okay. So what I have found very interesting is, remember how I said we've had a lot of public figures who all of a sudden have been endorsing a lot of political foolery. And I kept saying how I feel like a lot of people are either being paid off or people are just being objectively obtuse on purpose for clout. We've now seen a certain rapper. I'm not even about to put the name out there because I'm tired of giving some of these people publicity, but they caught a bunch of smoke earlier because they were saying how much they enjoyed the previous president and how, he was good because we were getting stimulus checks and he was getting us out of jail. And I've heard that argument a lot as of late, where for some reason, people are now in this space where they will bypass all of the shenanigans of the past administration because folks got $1,200 during the pandemic, which is so funny because, again, that $1,200, that was something that was voted on by a bipartisan Congress, where, again, the legislation initially came from Democrats, right? But somehow y'all want to keep equating a stimulus check to Trump. And what's so funny, so remember, there were 3 rounds of stimulus checks. And what I just find interesting is, and I'm honestly, I promise y'all, I'm not trying to always ride the coattails of Democrats and try to justify what happens. But sometimes there's not a both sides conversation. Sometimes one side is just straight up stupid and the other side has a little bit more common sense that day. So we're on the common sense train. So on this common sense train, when the pandemic hit and you had all these Americans losing their jobs, everybody was getting, even I got furloughed. As soon as the country shut down, we went straight to 80% furlough, and then they laid off every part-time worker. I was like, damn, y'all didn't even let us get a week in here, right? So economy's falling apart. People are losing jobs. All this stuff is happening. What does Congress do? They say we need to do something. So you have a lot of Democrats in Congress push, they have the HEROES Act or the CARES Act, one of them acts. And that act was supposed to go support Americans. And when it came to the conversation of stimulus checks, the initial idea was to have even bigger ones, right? There were conversations and proposals to have monthly checks coming in, all these different ideas that would have made life really easy for people. GOP said, hell no, we ain't doing all that. Absolutely not. But, we'll agree to do maybe one check. Y'all can get a little $1,200 or something, but y'all not about to be getting nothing every week. Y'all Negroes need to work. Everybody else, y'all better figure it out, right? And so, boom, we get stimulus check number 1. And that gets delayed because Trump personally wanted to sign every check and give you that stupid letter. So when everybody got that check, and then here's this letter, he says, I hope this will be enough. And you got pretty much telling everybody, I did this, thank me, because I'm the greatest. So he takes credit for what a bipartisan Congress does. And now y'all want to sit here and run around and act like Trump woke up thinking about all of us and giving us a check. And if we really want to go there, $1,200, that was already our money anyway. And had the tax code not changed in 2017 anyway, you would have already had that $1,200 in your pocket to begin with. But no, they gave you that raggedy tax cut in 2017, then lied and sat out there and said, well, with that being said, the $1,500 that you technically are going to save during this first, tax cut in 2017, you can go and renovate your kitchen with $1,500. Meanwhile, wealthy people got a huge check, right? And then, so getting back to my main point. So then you get the Biden administration. They come into office and they push in the American Rescue Plan Act, which gives us our third stimulus check. So I don't understand why there's this narrative of Trump gave us checks, Biden said to hell with us. Like we got checks under both administrations, and it's not technically Biden or Trump that gave us the checks. It was the people in Congress. And then, so for me, bragging and boasting about I'm going to get behind Trump and his shenanigans because I got a check for $1,200. And then people are also equating PPP loans with, yeah, he was helping us out. Those are loans. Those were business loans. So listen, if you were one of the folks that were able to scam and get some money out of the government, good luck. They coming after some of y'all at this point now. But people are like really equating small, typical, what I call breadcrumb policy with long legislative ideology and long legislative policy that affects us. And they're trying to almost like discredit how a lot of that affects us in a negative way because you got a $1,200 check. It's starting to show that a lot of people have a price. And the price ain't even that high. $1,200 and you done sold out like that. Because understand, this man, we've watched who he's put in regard to judges. So these judges have, under his judges, we've watched affirmative action be gutted. We've seen what's happened with women's reproductive rights. We're seeing what's happening with the Fearless Fund. We're seeing what's happening in regard to the conversations leading into voting rights. We're seeing what's happened with, again, recognize that with this current administration, remember, he had the big infrastructure bill and it was supposed to be in two parts. Only one part got passed because, again, some of those same people on the other side were not pushing it. And then you had stupid people like Sinema and Manchin who are also compromised and bought out. And so there's this big old piece of magical legislation that would have helped a lot of folks that got thrown out. So it kind of goes back to even the conversation of people are like, oh, Trump gave money to HBCUs. And it's like the money that he gave to HBCUs is money that was already lined item for HBCUs anyway. All right. And then on top of that, the next administration proposed a much bigger budget for HBCUs. But again, because the second half of that infrastructure or whatever that policy was did not get voted on. And again, GOP was like, absolutely not. That idea of, that lump sum of billions of dollars to HBCUs got chopped down to two. And then everybody ran with it and said, oh, the Biden administration just pulled 15 or 20 or $30 million from HBCUs, money that was never there anyway. This was money that was proposed by that administration for HBCUs. It couldn't get through because, again, a lot of the people in power said, hell no, y'all Negroes ain't getting that. And so it's kind of like at some point, I need people to be for real. Like, I'm not saying, and this is not a pass to Biden and his shenanigans either, but we're not going to sit here and act like times were great under Trump. And what people what I think people are miscalculating is you're giving Trump credit for the Obama economy, for the gains that were made under Obama. And what's happening now is like y'all trying to act like Trump is down with us. He's not. So yeah, he let Kodak Black out of jail. Okay, Kodak Black is still a rapist. So like, what are we doing here, right? And then again, you had the child tax credit, right? Money going to families, $300 a month. It's not a lot of money, but everybody knows daycare is like $1,500 a month if you have to pay it. Who gutted the child tax credit and said, we're not doing that no more? Riddle me that, right? And so, again, even before he got out of office, what was one of the biggest threats the Orange Man said before he got out of there? Because this is around the time where Black folks have had the Great Awakening. You're calling out the nonsense. And what does he say? Pretty much any federal institution that does not promote the greatness of the founding fathers and has any kind of element of endorsing the 1619 Project, and we weren't using the term woke yet or CRT, but pretty much says that endorses any of that, they will automatically lose federal funding. Who do you think would have been the first institutions to lose out? HBCUs, right? So it's kind of like people like to pick and choose. That's why I always tell y'all, one, don't even listen to celebrities when it comes to politics, because I can tell you right now, she's not even paying attention to none of that. So, and whatever. I just think people are stupid with that because so many people ran with that. And like I said, flaws exist in all of the parties. But right now, one party, and this goes back to what I said a few lives ago, where I said, if you have the house and the garage is flooding or the basement is flooding and the kitchen is on fire, what do you take care of first? The flood is going to come. It's going to do what it does, but fire spreads much faster. Fire spreads. And what's happening is so many people are so pressed about this flood, they're letting the fire burn the house down while they're trying to worry about the flood. So by the time you deal with the flood and you come back into the house is gone. You come outside and you standing in a frame and smoldering pieces of wood, but you got that water taken. You got the water taken care of. For some reason, people like to jump into this one or the other. We can have multiple conversations and address multiple things at the same time. In the same way you can give credit to an administration for something they're doing right, you can also critique and highlight what needs to be done better. I think the biggest critique I have of the Biden administration is that they suck in marketing what it is they've done. You know, people give Kamala a lot of smoke and they say, well, what has she done? And I'm like, what did Mike Pence do? What has any vice president ever done? But if we want to get to Kamala, the one thing you can at least give her credit for is the conversation of replacing all the pipelines in America, as far as the conversation of all the lead pipes everywhere that they've been trying to go and replace. That was part of the infrastructure bill. That's one of the things she spearheaded. I think they suck at marketing with what it is they've done. And so it is what it is. But I'm just going to say, like, I need people to be a bit more nuanced in their politics. Supporting a policy or having criticism of another does not mean you automatically have a marriage to any politician, or you have a marriage to a party, or you have a marriage to a side. It's just taking the bits that you have leverage with and making it work for you. And a lot of people are going to dig themselves into a hole because you want to look. When it comes to Orange Man, listen, for me, there's no leverage with him. That is somebody you cannot trust with anything, because look at how he does his own people. All the people who have supported him or worked behind him, look how quick he throws them under the bus. Look how quick he backtracks on policy. Look at the nonsense that's there. Now, listen, like I said, Biden was not my candidate. I don't like, even thinking of 2024 runs up my blood pressure. But what we're not going to do is all of a sudden assume that $1,200 eradicates everything else. So let's jump back with that. Because like I said, $1,200 is not even rent for most people anymore. So I need people to be for real. Anyway. Going back, let's read some comments. Yeah, I'm welcome. Yeah, he was giving us money. We was living large, right? And then here comes opportunity zones helping to gentrify everybody's neighborhood faster. But y'all running behind a $1,200 check. Okay, a $1,200 check that was already your money anyway. Okay. Thank you, Tyler. CARES Act was the initial stimulus. All right. Let's see here. Somebody said Trump helped me get a car. Okay, you got a car, but at the same time, we now have watched. For anybody who's having children, good luck with Pell Grants if they need to go to college. That's compromise. Our Supreme Court is compromised. Any kind of element with climate change has been compromised. Where else could we go with this? Housing market compromise. We now have these big giant corporations that have literally bought up all of the real estate. There's no legislation or regulation to kind of change any of that. We have all these people who are now in Congress who are not even real politicians, who think all of this is a game. So you get the Lauren Boeberts and the Marjorie Taylor Greens who are in office and they have no real policy. Their job is to get behind a bunch of wealthy people and line their pockets, right? So there's all of these things that have been compromised. All of these things that are not going to be undone. Again, I can't get past 200 judges having life appointments. And so, like I said, there are some good things. Hell, my money was pretty decent under Cuckoo Man when he was in office, but that's also because I just ended up climbing at my job and I started to get raises and the YouTube channel started to grow. So I started to get a bigger check and, interest rates were really, really, low at the time. So there were just some things where, yeah, you could benefit from buying a car at a lower interest rate. Life happens, but it's just like, I'm just not getting behind Trump ever. It's never happening. In the same way, Biden's not my guy. He's here for now, I guess. But God, Trump it's not him. I'm sorry. It never will be. And look at the people who have become empowered under his watch, right? I can't do it. I'm sorry. I know some people like to try to do this thing where, well, let me align. Because my thing is, I would rather you just say F both parties and be on your merry way, as opposed to letting the smoke you have for Democrats give a pass to Republicans to do the BS that they do. They are not our friends because, again, they don't need the black vote to win. They don't. Republicans can win with 0% of the black vote. So what are they? They're never going to give black people anything. They're never going to advocate for black anything, period. Even in the conversation of reparations. You think a conversation of reparations, if black people were to really, and mind you, Democrats, it's a conversation too with them too, because they're going to start acting funny when that conversation comes to the table. But recognize a conversation with reparations as far as what would really be owed when you're talking trillions of dollars. You think Republicans are going to say yes to that? They don't even they freaking cut school lunch programs, right? They cut down WIC. They cut down the food stamp program. They cut down everything you can think of. TANF, all this stuff is compromised. They don't care about the people. Like I said, most of these politicians are bought out, but it's like, I need people to be for real. And PPP checks were loans. That wasn't free money given out. So yeah, some people was eating lobster tail every day for a few weeks, but that money has to go back at some point. Like, man, y'all put that cuckoo man in office again if you want to. Understand, Trump gets back in there, he's going on a vengeance tour. He's going to get back everybody who did him wrong. He's only running for office so he don't got to face all the nonsense he has coming down the line anyway. Jesus. Throwing some damn paper towels to the people of Puerto Rico. Wouldn't even barely gave them funds after the hurricane. Build Back Better was significantly struck down, and parts were supposed to be in it that were a part of the Inflation Reduction Act. That's my point. Like, really follow the policy. Like, that's all I'm saying. I'm not telling you who to get behind, but I'm telling you, just take note of the foolery and the foolishness. You know, even some of the worst people in the world might have a treat or two for you. Yeah, here's a stimulus check that I didn't create, but I'm gonna take the credit for. Like, man. The Democrats had a lot of power before the midterms. They didn't because you had Manchin and Sinema in the way as far as everything with the Senate, right? So the House had a 4-seat majority. The Senate had a 2-seat, well, really like a 1.5-seat majority. Sinema technically is not a Democrat. You saw her swap parties. Manchin's already talking about he might go Republican. They weren't real Democrats anyway. So no, they didn't have any power because they couldn't get anything done. The last time, in my opinion, Democrats had any real power would have been between 2009 and 2010. That's when we got the Affordable Care Act. Ever since then, Democrats have had no power to do anything. Everything has been compromised. The majority hasn't been large enough. They can't get anything done. Like, I get it. It's annoying because it does piss you off when a party has the majority, when they have the White House, when they have Congress, and stuff still doesn't get to where you need it to be. But then on the flip side, when Republicans had the House, Senate, and the White House, you saw how much they struggled. Look at how much they tried to gut the Affordable Care Act, and they couldn't get it done. So in that same token, when it's on the other end of the spectrum and they have all the power, they can't get nothing done either. Like, again, this is what happens when you have money in politics. Everybody is bought out. Everybody has lobbyists in their back pocket. Everybody has PACs in their back pocket. And so when there's legislation that comes out that makes sense, like, oh, I should get behind whatever, you never see it happen. Because they're too aligned with whoever they owe money to, right? Look at Lindsey Graham. Clearly, somebody has something on that man. Because when you look at how he moves, it's the most interesting thing, right? It's like, how? Why? The most inconsistent politician. As much as I can't stand Jim Jordan, at least he's consistent with his foolery. You know what you're getting out of Jim Jordan. Lindsey Graham, for some reason, I don't know what Trump has on that man, but man, Lindsey is a shell of what he once was. He still wasn't shit back in the day either, but now this is a special lane of it. Man. I'm just saying, if y'all gonna have a price, have a higher one. It got to be more than $1,200. That man does not F with us. Joe Biden actually built anti-black penal codes affecting people now. Yeah, if we're talking about the crime bill, and then I think, again, it has to kind of go back to the context of what was happening at that time. I think we talked about this before, but going back, and by the way, I'm not yelling at y'all. This is just me responding. You go back to the 80s, right? Like we said, Republicans were in power since Reagan. They were in power from about 1981 till around the time Clinton finally gets elected. So Republicans had 12 years to be in charge of everything. And Democrats were desperate to get in office because they kept losing everything. And the biggest critique of Democrats was they were too weak on crime. So as we're coming out of the 80s, going into the 90s, we're still in the crack epidemic. We're still in a space where there's high crime. And even the Congressional Black Caucus is begging something must be done. We must do something about the crime. And I think the flaw that existed was people didn't really understand the idea of rehabilitation. They didn't understand the idea of investing into communities so that you can have a decrease in crime, investing into recreational space, entertainment, leisure, resources, restructuring what happens in our school, making things accessible to people. None of that was the conversation. The conversation was, let's just lock everybody up. So what ends up happening? All of your Democrats run behind that because they want to get in office too, because they're under the assumption that this is what America wants, because based on polling, the majority of Americans at the time, including a large segment of Black Americans at that time, said something must be done about crime. So then boom, here comes this crime bill that everybody gets behind. You have all these people from the CBC endorsing it. You have Democrats running on it. Republicans say that it's not strong enough, right? And so it passes. And yes, it was extremely detrimental to the Black collective. Extremely, especially when you talk about mandatory minimum laws, especially when you talk about the three strikes law. Absolutely terrible, right? But with that being said, you're now in a space where one group is trying to remedy that situation and trying to undo the wrongs. Because, like I said, my opinion on Joe Biden, my beef with Joe is I think Joe just goes wherever the wind blows if it means he can get in the door. Like when you look at how much he's flip flopped on policy back and forth between, if you look at where he stood on things in the 80s or the 70s and the 90s, like he has switched and swapped positions so many times on his politics. And I think that's because he just wanted to say or do whatever would get him in the door with everybody. And when he gets in the door, yeah, he'll give the people what it was they were asking for. Like to me, that is his biggest flaw. He would do any and everything to get in the door. And then I think you have other people who are just inherently evil, like just straight up effing evil. And again, people want to line their pockets because it goes back to that conversation of having an obsession with being in power. So I think our politics is very nuanced. And I think the flaw that exists with collective opinion in modern times is that people approach politics with a one size fits all. It's one or the other. There's never this middle ground that has all these layers that kind of put things into context. It's either, well, this person did that, or that person did that, and it's way here, and everything in here just gets ignored, and all the context gets ignored, right? So it even goes back to Supreme Court. When we get Clarence Thomas, Thurgood Marshall's like, I'm out of here, I'm ready to retire, and what ends up happening? Bush and crew was like, okay, we need representation, huh? Okay, who? Yeah, we got Clarence Thomas. He's a great one. We go and get somebody who is polar opposite politically, total disregard for any element of Black progress. He done made it, so he feels like the rest of us can figure it out, right? What ends up happening? Around the time that they're trying to do the confirmation hearings, we get Anita Hill. She's saying, no, this man is a creep. You know, he sexually harassed me. There were pubic hairs and soda cans and clips of long dong silver and all kind of nonsense. And rather than people saying, let's hear her out, it turned into, oh, no, y'all trying to take down the Black man. That's the problem. I mean, you had Black people out here protesting, trying to shut her up. You know, everything like that. And here's Joe again, you know, running and doing the whole thing, trying to shut down Anita, right? Everybody's running. This is the opportunity. This goes back to the conversation of symbolism. Everybody wanted the Black man in that space. And there were other Black individuals who were like, no, do not put this man in here because of this, that, and the third. Understand this dude is crazy. And people were shutting them up like, no, y'all just being some haters because y'all licking the boots for massa. Every time somebody uses massa, they always use it with the wrong context, right? And so all of that gets shut down. We get Clarence Thomas. And just tell me how great it's been since he got into office. It's been a great time, hasn't it? So understand, our politics is some BS. There's a lot of nonsense going on. So I just need people to not be one-dimensional in their politics. Anyway. Yeah, Trump already told y'all in Chicago he was going to send the National Guard over there. Y'all didn't start acting up. That was how we started Black History Month in 2018. Like, Lord, me frying up Trump does not mean I have a marriage to Joe Biden at all. Let me see. Trump let 1 million people unalive themselves over COVID-19, saying bleach will cure. Well, it wasn't 1 million people kill themselves with that, but yeah, you had a lot of people killed. Well, not kill themselves, but take ivermectin, which was proven to not be any kind of remedy to COVID, and bleach and the item that was in aquariums. Like, he's just not smart. I'm like, my thing, if you're going to put somebody racist in there, at least put somebody with some intelligence, somebody that can still help the country run. Like, let him get back in there, watch everything go right into the ground again. I think there's also a generational divide. I think the generations all want something different. Baby boomers who, in my opinion, life has been good to them, right? They have gotten to the age where they were in an era where they could buy houses for really, really cheap, right? Cars were really cheap. Life was great in the 50s and 60s. They were at jobs that had pensions, 401ks, Social Security. A millennial or a Gen Z right now, most of us are in companies that don't even have pensions. You know, there's some companies that have pensions, but a lot of us work in spaces where there is no pension. Social Security probably won't exist by the time we're old enough to retire. And then 401k, it's still taxed at what, 40%? And it's not like if you come into hard times, you can just pull money out of it without being penalized and taxed. So when you're talking about just like what's happening, the generations all have something different that they're fighting for. And the part that sucks is with really just us being in a two-party system, it limits the progress that can be made because everybody under these collective umbrellas of what they believe in are all fighting for something different. And nobody can ever get enough people on one side of the argument to get behind something, to push something. So we're constantly in this space of back and forth where nothing happens. So we watch policy get put into play, and then we watch policy get ripped. And we've been bouncing back and forth for like the last 30 years, right? And it's crazy. Anyway. Calvin, hold on, where am I at? That was a good question. Where was it at? That was a good question. Why does this thing just jump? Hold on. Do you not see all the foolishness and predatory behavior Joe Biden has displayed or been accused of? Hell, listen, I know that man is just as cuckoo and crazy. For the millionth time, my critiques of, let me rephrase this. Biden, he's not my guy. I'm not married to this guy. I've never endorsed him on this channel. I have said in regard to when we got to election season, it was down to the wire. I said, for reasons A, B, C, and D, I chose to vote for Biden, mainly because in the field that I worked in the nonprofit world. When Republicans are in power, nonprofits suffer. For the work that I did, running a community center in a public housing complex is not the easiest thing to do when you have an administration that's also trying to gut HUD and gut TANF and gut WIC and gut food stamps and gut programs that benefit nonprofits. So all of my work was compromised under the previous administration. So for me, yes, I put in an old cuckoo old man who I did not want to run, but at that point it was down to the wire. And so, hey, I recognize that the people that were in his cabinet were going to be people that were going to work in a space where a lot of these programs would still be protected. And they have been. So listen, Joe, he's not my guy at all. But the thing with Orange Man was Orange Man got in there, and then look who he put in these positions. Look at what's happened to education. It's bad enough we had to deal with No Child Left Behind from Bush, right? But then you get DeVos in there who just, when I say, if you guys can go and look at some of what has happened to public education under her watch and how she was allowed to just do whatever. When you go and you take a look at what's happened with HUD, it's just like, it's not even just about the individual person, but it's the company they keep, the people that they put into these positions to do their job. Yeah, it's no secret. Joe definitely had people accusing him of sexual assault the same way that Trump had 17 women accusing him. Like I said, Joe's not my guy. But at the same time, I'm not foolish enough to get behind Republicans. They are not our friends. And so no matter how cuckoo or how terrible Joe is and all this other stuff, when it comes to the policy, which again, I don't even agree with all his policy, at this point, I've seen more leverage with what that side has been doing versus the other. One side, every time we come on here, I'm talking about something they're getting rid of. Every time we come on this live, I got to bring up something else crazy that's happened down the pipeline. Every single time. So it's kind of like, let's be for real here. Okay. Again, it's not an endorsement. It's not a marriage. It's just saying, all right, I'm not crazy over this politician. And y'all know my conversation has always been bringing in a third-party coalition that's large enough to influence one of the major two parties to get everything that you want. But every single time, we never get that. And at this point, it's too late for that to happen for 2024. So we're going to be right back to the same two-party nonsense. Y'all can mark my words, go back to when I started doing lives. I started saying in 2018 that was the time to start prepping for 2024. And I said, find a third-party movement that is viable enough, that can get a large enough coalition of supporters where if one of the major two parties does not have the support of that coalition, they can't win. They need that coalition to win. Now you have leverage. Now you're able to get what it is that you want. Because again, in the same way Matt Gaetz just got Kevin McCarthy out of there, think about it. A freaking minority group within the House got McCarthy out of there. 8 people said he's got to go. And then they collabed with the Dems and he got out of there. A third party that has viable leverage and has a large enough sample size of voters that, again, would be detrimental to a party if they decided to pull out. If you have that kind of pull, now you've locked in, you can get stuff done, right? And I will say this about third party as well. We also have to be careful with who the third party candidate is. There's also this whimsical approach where people think just because somebody's third party, they're a better candidate. They're not always going to be that. They're always not. So it's like you still need to even vet who that is. So like I've been saying since 2018, a third party movement that could at least pull in 20 or 30 million supporters, where again, they put up their platform to one of the major two parties and say, hey, listen, we already know we can't win because, the way that money works in politics, you're never going to have one of the two major parties not win at this point. The last third party candidate that had any possible viable shot of becoming president was Ross Perot. And you saw how he still got wiped out in the early 90s, right? And so, again, that idea of bringing in that coalition, this is all the stuff we want. Now, listen, we got 20, 30, 40 million people with us. You guys can't win without us. They can't win without us. So which one of y'all are going to give us what we need? Oh, you think you can do that? Now, let me tell you, when you get in here, we dare you to F up and not do it, because watch us be gone. Watch us pull out and see how far you get. And watch us not only, and again, you got a coalition of 20, 30, 40 million people, and watch us also jump into the conversation of what happens at local elections too. It's not going to just start at presidential. We coming up in everything. That's how things should move. Unfortunately, that didn't happen after 2018. It didn't. We just kept jumping in the same nonsense. Now we're at 2024, or going into 2024. It's the same shenanigans. You're going to have people show up last minute with platforms that suck. You're going to have people show up last minute, but they don't have a coalition behind them. So even if they sound like an ideal candidate, they're not going to win. They don't have enough backing. There's not enough people behind them to make a major implementation or a major impact on one of the two major parties. None of these candidates have that. I know a lot of people are excited about Cornell. I rock with Cornell on some things, and some things I'd be looking at him sideways on. But Cornell, in my opinion, at this moment, does not have enough people behind him to make a major dip within either party. If anything, most likely he's going to pull out some of the, I think Democrats will probably lose some voters to Cornell, but it won't really affect Republicans. But Cornell doesn't have enough of an impact to influence the Democrat Party to do a better job, right? But I think if Cornell had like 20 or 30 or 40 million people who were behind him, and mind you, I haven't really followed all of his policy yet. I still got to look, see how he feels on some things, because there's a lot of stuff he has where I'm like, I don't know about that. And I remember how he used to move in the early 90s. All right, he was always talking, we got to move with what we can get. I don't like that. But anyway, another conversation. Yeah, y'all. Okay. I think that's fair, Sochi. Joe's a moderate and has always been. Part of that is compromising time after time. There are losses with compromise. Like I said, he's always wanted to be in power, so he's going to go wherever the wind blows, right? Corey said, "Low key, I wanted to see who was going to be stupid enough to take the bleach and light though. Like it's weird. Like when I saw the guy that died from taking the material that you use to clean the aquarium, because a certain somebody in office said that would get rid of COVID. Like nonsense. All right. Yeah, Cornell's running. I think he's Green Party. Yeah, or maybe he's something. I don't know what he's running. I think he switched it up. All right, I got some other things. I got so many other people I still need to light up, and it's already 11:30. Damn. Okay. Um, two things. We're gonna make these semi. I'm not gonna rush through these because I think they're still important. Um, so if you remember, we talked about Kenneka Jenkins before. Now, Kenneka Jenkins, this was the young lady who died in the hotel freezer back in 2017. So pretty much the family of a 19-year-old woman who died of hypothermia inside a hotel in freezer in 2017 has reached a settlement with the hotel, its security company, and the hotel's restaurant. Kenneka Jenkins was found dead inside a walk-in freezer at Crown Plaza Chicago O'Hare Hotel in Rosemont early on September 10th, 2017, after she went to the complex late on September 8th for a private party in there. The circumstances surrounding her death generated controversy, with friends and family members questioning whether foul play had occurred and whether the police had mishandled the case. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office ruled Jenkins' death an accident. Medical authorities say she died from hypothermia after being exposed to cold. Toxicology tests detected alcohol and what is this? Some kind of drug, an epilepsy migraine medication in the woman's system, which contributed to her death, the medical examiner's office said. In 2018, Jenkins' mother, Teresa Martin, filed a lawsuit against the hotel's parent company, security firm, and restaurant, claiming the staff were negligent because they didn't secure the walk-in freezer or conduct a proper search when Jenkins went missing. The suit says the staff failed to monitor security cameras that would have alerted them to Jenkins' whereabouts, thus preventing her death. The lawsuit sought $50 million in damages. According to Cook County Circuit Court records, the two sides agreed to settle the lawsuit in August, but the terms of the agreement have not been made public as Jenkins' family is seeking to keep the deal under seal, citing safety and privacy concerns. According to the filing, the defendants also have agreed the settlement and agreement should remain sealed. So if you remember that case, which was actually really, really sad, that was the young lady that was at the party. She goes missing she leaves on September 8th to go to the party. By the time she gets there, it's the 9th, and then she's not found until the 10th, right? It opened a plethora of conversation and dialogue about a lot of things. And so for that family, even though money is great, I think the hardest thing, because I think people sometimes place judgment on families that like do these lawsuits, because hell, I'd be suing too. People always try to say, oh, so-and-so is after money, blah, 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 blah. Understand, even though they deserve every penny that they get, money does not bring the person back. And these people still are going to deal with the hurt of losing a daughter. And I think the worst hurt in the world when you lose a loved one is when they pass on because of some kind of tragedy or some element of violence or something that, it's different when you have a relative that passes on because of old age or they just happen to be sick. When you have a relative that's, been assaulted or shot or something crazy, it's a different kind of hurt, in my opinion. So we're going to see how that all unfolds. But I also want to go to Kendrick Johnson because now this is getting a little bit deeper. Now, Kendrick Johnson, if we remember, this was the young kid in Georgia that was found in the wrestling mats. And there's so much behind this case. I'm going to read. Actually, I'll just read all of this because I think I want to make sure we're in the right context. Attorney for a family of Georgia teen found dead in gym mat announces $1 billion federal lawsuit against investigators, sheriff's office. No arrest has ever been made in the case of Kendrick Johnson, who was 17 at the time he was found dead in 2013, Valdosta, Georgia. The family of a Georgia teen who was found dead rolled up in a gym mat at his South Georgia high school is suing several law enforcement agencies in a new $1 billion federal lawsuit. Kendrick Johnson was 17 at the time of his death in 2013. The suit was announced in a news conference in front of the federal courthouse on Tuesday. It's painful, it's hurtful, it's a shame that we've been having this fight for 10 and a half long years, said Mother Jacqueline Johnson. 11 Alive reached out to agencies including Lowndes County Sheriff's Office, Lowndes, I think I'm saying it right. If I'm saying it wrong, forgive me. Lowndes County Medical Examiner and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation for a response. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation responded to the federal lawsuit with the following statement. The GBI Medical Examiner's Office conducted a thorough autopsy on this case. The case is closed and we stand behind our original findings. Johnson was found dead on January 11th, 2013 in a vertical rolled up mat in his high school gym. He was last seen alive the day prior, records show. Johnson's family has consistently said foul play was involved in their son's death. A sheriff's office synopsis of the investigation indicates there's no evidence that that was the case. We should not have to be the grievers and the investigators, said his father, Kenneth Johnson, at a news conference on Tuesday. The case was reopened in 2021 and nearly a year later, again, ruled accidental. When the case was reopened, Lowndes County Sheriff Ashley Polk previously stated that they would review the case thoroughly. We'll go through every bit of it. If we find a contradiction, we're going to resolve any contradiction, Polk previously said. I want to start fresh, and I want to start fresh with it and look it all the way through. I think the community deserves it. The sheriff's synopsis covers evidence and reports from 9 investigative agencies, federal grand jury testimonies, and autopsies. Investigators said the Valdosta teen tried to reach into the rolled-up gym mat at Lowndes High School to grab his shoes. An initial autopsy ruled his death accidental by asphyxiation, records show. The family, however, believes he was murdered by schoolmates and had 2 subsequent autopsies conducted, both of which they said showed blunt force trauma as the cause of death. Johnson's body was exhumed in 2018 for the 3rd autopsy. The findings showed the cause of death was apparent non-accidental blunt force trauma. It also showed some of Johnson's organs were missing. Remember, he was stuffed with newspaper. In 2021, an audio tape also surfaced with what appeared to be a confession to the murder of Johnson. Sheriff Office records debunked the call, saying it was a hoax. The tape was sold to the Johnson family for $1,000. The Sheriff's Office report states several witnesses testified that it was gym practice for the students to leave shoes in the mat. The teen's death was previously ruled accidental in May 2013. We're going to continue fighting for Kendrick because his life mattered. I still think there's some BS behind that and somebody's lying. And the reason I say that, had he fallen, because mind you, there's also surveillance footage that somehow went missing where there's some hours that aren't accounted for. One of the students that people somewhat think may have been one of the violent perpetrators, if there was one, has ties to the police and has ties to people in charge. But when he had gone into the mat, there were other people in the class at the time. Had he fallen in the mat and been stuck, he would have screamed for help. Somebody would have heard something, right? And so even when you look at, if you unfortunately had the terrible experience of seeing the initial picture afterwards, that's not the face of somebody who just suffocated to death, right? Something has clearly happened. There was clearly something that took place, and I'm not sure how he ended up rolled up in the mat. But there's too many questions that need answers, especially when, again, the man's or the boy's organs were missing during the autopsy. So it's kind of like there's some nonsense going on around there. And the reason I say that is look at what happened with Breonna Taylor. They ran on this narrative that the police were not in the wrong and everything was all good. And yeah, she just was in the wrong place at the wrong time and he fired and blah, 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 blah. And then we fast forward and we find out there's all kind of cover-ups. We find out it's linked to even a real estate deal to pretty much gut that entire complex and start a new project to line somebody's pockets. So again, and now you're seeing officers and people now being, investigated for the murder of Breonna Taylor. Like, so much nonsense. So I never take the word of police or authorities with anything like that, because we've seen, the foolery, the shenanigans, how people cover things up all the time, right? Even when you look at what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, how they initially tried to move, how they thought they could kind of just brush it over like nothing had happened. Like, we've seen that too many times. So yeah, there's some shenanigans going on with that, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, even the case with the woman, I can't remember her name. Y'all know who I'm talking about, though. The black woman who somehow fell off the balcony at the sleepover with the white women. There's a bunch of stuff going on. So we're gonna see how all of this unfolds. Hmm. All right. Let's see. Y'all going crazy. You don't get to be a billionaire. Wait, I'm sorry. Y'all are going crazy. You don't get to be a billionaire or by being done. Okay. Um, these jobs now barely pay or want to pay you to give you enough for health insurance. Exactly. Um, oh, by the way, yeah. Okay, Corey. Now I'm with you on this. Somebody said, so you think billionaires are geniuses? I don't think they're. I don't understand how we got into the space where we associate wealth with intelligence. Because one, a lot of these like billionaires that we tend to give praise to already came from money, already had seed money. Trump got what, $14 million from his dad to do what he did, and we saw how Trump continued to fumble that bag. Elon Musk has all kind of freaking apartheid money, right? It's just I'll never understand. Like, I don't associate wealth with intelligence. I think wealth just means some people have luck of the draw, some people have good people around them, some people, yeah, they do some great business deals, but that doesn't mean that you should also dictate and be in a space where you make decisions for the good of everybody else, because you might not be well versed in that. Look at how Elon is running Twitter, right? It's been a firestorm ever since he got over there. Yeah, I don't equate being a billionaire with being intelligent at all. I mean, I don't think I'd want to be one, honestly. I don't think you can get to billionaire status without doing a lot of really shady stuff. There's a lot of people you've stepped on to get there. That's all I'll say. Let's see. Now, I've been said Biden doesn't need to run again, but it looks like he's running. I wish he would have stepped down and passed it to somebody else, but so be it. Um, Somebody said we need someone 35 to 50 years old to run with serious policy solutions. I'll even take somebody that's 60. To be honest, I just need the policy to be right. And a lot of these people have horrible policy or they don't have policy. I think where Democrats also suck is a lot of times a lot of people ran on, well, we're not Trump. You got to do more than that, because that's not enough. Because like we got a lot of people who don't mind Trump. Again, that idea of some people's lives actually were pretty decent under his watch. The cars aligned for some people. So you can't just run on, we're not Trump. That's not enough, right? Because if that were the case, McConnell would have lost his reelection. Lindsey Graham would have lost his reelection. Ted Cruz would have lost his reelection. Marco Rubio would have lost his election. Like, all these people would have lost their elections if that were the case. So yeah, you definitely have to. They've got to be more than that. Orange Man, that's my main bit. He changed up the tax code. I'm never letting that one go. Now I'm looking at the current president, like you can change it back anytime you want, sir. You sitting here. All right. Same thing with the Supreme Court. You moving real quietly over there. Um, yeah, he changed up the tax code, and a lot of us didn't even know it or know how bad it has affected us if you're middle or working class. And that's the worst part. The code specifically punishes working class Americans. But Calvin, we have no traction in this current administration except lip service. I agree that there's a lot of lip service. Um, mm, I'm with you on that. I'm not even fighting you on that. I think there are some things that they have been able to do that I'm like, okay, that's cool. To me, it seems like this is a term of stabilizing the nonsense that we've just come out of. But again, this wasn't my dream ticket. This wasn't the ticket I was behind, so I don't have to answer for them. um, let's see. And it's even bigger than just conversation around like politics for Black Americans too. Like just the country as a whole. Like for me, when I see some of the things that people are trying to push or take away, that just I'm like, what is the goal? Are y'all just trying to have the country just collapse within itself? What is the goal here? Like, man, some of these people are just straight up terrible. Um, let's see. At this point, I'm telling y'all, some of y'all, go ahead and jump behind Orange Man. Get behind him and tell me how it goes. Let me see. Let's see. Like I said, my fire and the flooding basement scenario, they're both problems. But yeah, you said I voted for Cynthia McKinney. Cynthia McKinney's kind of on some nonsense now too, though. Like Cynthia, I remember when she ran in '08, but like go look into what she's currently into right now. I'm looking at her a little sideways right now. Um, let's see. Somebody said people need to reach out to their politicians. I don't think it does anything. They don't care. They don't. If there's no money, they're not talking. Um, Robert Kennedy doesn't need to run. Let me see. Somebody said, but Biden already had his chance. If he doesn't do something before his term ends, we got to vote down ballot and deal with a Republican president. But then the Republican president just is going to not sign any legislation you get through. Let's say you go down ballot, and let's say we have a Democrat House, a Democrat Senate. Let's say it don't even got to be Democrat. Let's say, well, no, it has to be for this conversation. So let's say you have that. Let's say they push all this legislation you like, a Republican president is going to veto it all. Like all of this still works full circle. So, and personally, I don't think the down ballot idea worked. I know that was something people tried in 2020, but what people also underestimated is what white people were going to do. So white people were tired of Trump, and what did they do? They voted Biden and then down ballot Republicans. So a lot of the races that people thought Democrats were going to take in 2020, they didn't get, right? And it also happened as well in 2016, where you still had a down ballot movement, and you ended up with the Republican House and Senate. So I don't know. I don't think down ballot works unless you have enough people in it, and there just aren't that buy into it right now. Um, let me see. But yeah, y'all go ahead and let the Republicans get on there. Let them have their fun. Then y'all do what y'all got to do. All right. I still have other things I got to get to. um, let's see. She says, so who took his organs? Nobody knows. That's the part that's crazy. Like, he was found with newspapers. Now, hey, there's a whole nother parallel and another conversation with the organ harvesting thing. I'm not even jumping into that window, but that's a great question. I would like to know that as well. Tyler said somebody lying. Okay, it's pronounced Lowndes. Thank you, Adesua. I think I said that right. I really think one of them kids hit him in the head with something. Like that's what I really think. But let's see. Um, somebody said reach out to our politicians. How I wrote to Diane Feinstein for months regarding passing the John Lewis bill. She sent me a dim generic letter, and now look, I'm not gonna finish that. Ooh, y'all know how to. Ooh. I'm not doing that. I'm not. Ah, Lord. Okay. Jesus. Oh, y'all are tough. Whew. And my cousin Brandon, you know what? So my cousin Brandon and I have this ongoing battle about DC versus Atlanta as far as which city is more off the chain. So every time something happens in one of our cities, we always send these articles about whatever's happening. So he's like, "Ooh, I hear sirens in your city right now." He got jokes. All right, I got a few more people to cover because I need to go to bed soon. Actually, no, I don't got to work tomorrow. I'll hang for a little bit. Um, Let me see here. We've covered. Oh Lord, I still got to talk about Doja Cat too. I guess Doja Cat, she's not my type. I've never really been into her music. I think she's somebody who I think has talent. I think is entertaining, but she's on some weird wave that I'm not a part of. But she's caught some backlash because I get well, she's done a bunch of different things as of late, but she had the T-shirt on of some neo-Nazi person, and it's just a weird space, especially because apparently I think one of her parents is Jewish or something. So listen, she's not who I get behind, but I do think fame is doing a number on her, and I think fame is affecting her mental state. I think she's a little, I think she's battling some stuff, but yeah, she's just not who I follow. I think the music is cool, but I don't connect with it. Um, and I think there's also this wave of a lot of people who purposely do things to get backlash so that their name can, they can get the clout and their names are trending and then boom, they drop a project or something. I feel like that's kind of the wave she's on. And even with her doing the whole, because I think it's also kind of tired when people do the whole like demonic thing or the dark spirit thing. I'm like, at some point, y'all got to come up with some new stuff. Like that's somebody does that every year. But yeah, so there's that. And there's Drake, who there's a few things with Drake. So I know he just dropped a project. I haven't finished the whole thing yet. It's all right. He's been moving real weird with me lately, so I'm really not a fan right now. Um, and I'm so confused as to why you're dissing Esperanza Spalding. Like, what's that about? But I did see some of the backlash Joe Budden was giving, and it's crazy because I don't care for Joe Budden either. But he was talking about Dre as an artist and just kind of how he thinks Dre is kind of just he's just not great right now. I think for somebody like a Drake, I think sometimes when you have so much success and success is automatically standard, meaning like you can burp in the mic and it's going to go to number one. Eventually, you're not hungry for it anymore because you have the luxury and the safety net of always being successful. You have the luxury and the safety net of people always still getting behind you, going to your tours. You're in the good favor with radio programmers and curated playlist developers and everything like that. So you kind of get the luxury to just slide. And because you're like one of the biggest rappers in the world, all of the it producers are breaking their necks to have their best work put on your project. So I think what ends up happening is you somewhat lose the fight and the hunger for it, which is why I think he's also saying like he's taking a break and stuff because I think his music has gotten very stagnant, very stagnant. I think the last great era of Drake was like 2018, in my opinion. Um, and he's just been moving real weird. Like he got a lot of stuff. I don't know. Y'all enjoy. I'm gonna finish the album, but of the rap albums that have come out, I like Diddy's album more than what Drake is doing. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of entertainers, like somebody like in his case, I just think he's comfortable being at the top. And so because of that, he's not challenging himself as an artist anymore. So that's why I think the last few albums have kind of fallen flat. There's a gem, there's a gem here and there on some of the tracks, but a lot of his music, in my opinion, doesn't sound inspired. To me, it sounds like what you get when you have all the hottest producers who are going to work on your project, and you can just kind of go in there and do anything. Like, especially the time, what was that, when G Slide or whatever came out, or Tootsie Slide, whatever that song was, I was like, oh yeah, you out here just doing anything now. So yeah, I think when artists aren't hungry for it anymore, they fall off. And Joe Budden was saying a bit about him kind of trying to constantly appeal to like younger audiences. I think that's what happens when you don't have a musical identity. When your musical identity is rooted in commercial success. I think Doja kind of falls into that boat as well, where when you listen to their albums, you can tell it's created with the intent to cross over. Like that's just how I feel. I don't think the music is bad. I just think, me personally, I just don't connect with it. But I understand what its purpose is, and I understand why it appeals to certain demographics and why it doesn't to others. All right, let's see what we got here in the chat. Somebody said vote for Calvin. Y'all ain't got to worry about me running for office. I ain't doing that. If I were to ever run for anything, it would be a school board, but that's about it. And I don't even think I want to do that. I kind of just like working in it. Like I like the space that I work in, even though I don't work specifically with the kids as my actual job anymore. And it's more so me now on my own free will doing that and doing other things. I like doing like local community work. Like I've always said, you know, the problems that exist in America, a lot of it needs to be fixed through structural policy, right? Like I don't think we can some of this stuff we're not going to be able to just magically pull ourselves out of through collective anything because when you talk about money, like real money, yeah, there's some policy and stuff that needs to support some of that. But I think everybody can start within their local communities. Like so, I just think when you're trying to get work done, start local. I think a lot of people try to take and go straight to the big, massive national platforms, and then scandal kicks in a few years later. Then you find out folks been laundering money and all this other stuff, and then all the work goes in vain, right? And now when your organization comes up, there's nothing but bad opinions and bad thoughts and a bad taste in people's mouth. And now that work is compromised because other people don't want to get behind and support it. So I like the idea of starting small, starting local. So like where I worked, I specifically that neighborhood was like under my wing. It still is, right? Hell, to the point where, like I said, I got a kid on a national platform, you know, competing for stuff. So, you know, that's where I'm at. Or even like in DC, one of the favorite charities I like to support is Guns Down Friday. And as we know, especially in DC with gun crime just skyrocketing, that is a great organization to get behind. Their link has been posted in it's on my website. It's also in all of my descriptions, the link to their website. And there's another organization I like to support called Joyful Hands, which supplies, you know, gives school supplies and does healthcare events for people in the DMV, as well as supports kids in Liberia. So that's where I'm at. Like I try to find groups or things that have like a specific thing that they're supporting, right? That's where I'm at. But yeah, as far as politics, I'm just not trying to, I don't want to be in politics. And it's so crazy because when I went to Howard, I was a political science major and then I switched to communications. Um, Nathan Moore said her past is more controversial to me. I've never really followed her. So by the time I really got in the know of her music and I was like, oh, I like this song. Then the next thing you know, they were like, oh, she did this. I was like, damn. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I'm good. Y'all have fun. Entertaining, but she's not my type. And when I'm not talking type like attraction, I mean type like somebody I'm gonna get behind. Yeah, you gotta watch folks who surround themselves with a lot of terrible people. Jalil says switching. They really need to set a divide between physical and digital. That's in regard to music and streaming charts. How he ended up with 13 number ones is a trip. Oh yeah, because didn't he just tie Michael Jackson's record now? Yeah, I do think again, I've always said that there has to be a conversation of distinction because the accolades that people made before the beginning of the digital era were a lot harder to get than they are now. Like, you know, at one point you couldn't even chart on the Billboard Hot 100 unless your single was physically released. And then in the summer of '98, they changed that rule. And so now we're in a space where people could go to number one based off just radio play. But what we've seen happen in modern times is a lot of times because they've gotten rid of that rule, you know, people will release an album and because the songs are streaming really high or people have bought the individual tracks, you know, a lot of the tracks on the album will chart on Billboard and then they drop 50, 60, 70 spots the next week and then never rechart again. So you have people who have like tons and tons of chart entries that were only on the charts for 1 or 2 weeks. People have number ones that, you know, they debut at number one on the Billboard Hot 100. This is in regard to singles, not the actual album, but singles. You know, they debut at number one or peak at number two, and then they drop to 55 the next week, and then they fall off the chart the week after. So there's a lot of people getting these top 5 hits that really aren't hits. They're just kind of like more so conversations for the moment, which is why I also think they randomly created that TikTok top 50 chart, which I'm tired. I'm tired, y'all. It's just a lot. I hate that music has become so exploited and bought out where so many great artists are overlooked because they just don't get the backing anymore. Somebody said Drake has been fumbling a lot lately. Yeah, he's been on some nonsense. I ain't like what he said about a few things. Reba Ann Buckner said Republicans have no interest at all in anything that helps the average citizen, regardless of demographics. That's also one of my arguments as well. I just have yet to see them like push policy that is like for the people. Sometimes they do give something, but it's such a fraction of what it could have been because there's always something else tied to it, and it benefits somebody else who's in a higher position of power or who already has money. That's my beef. And please understand, Republicans of 2023 are not the Republicans of like 30 and 40 years ago. I still got my smoke for those ones too, but I don't know what vortex we're living in. Like American politics is, oh my God. Like Whitney used to say, my God, my God, my Lord. All right. Somebody said, his ego is out of this world. They truly believe they are the great, or they're that great. I think sometimes fans feel like artists owe them I'm sorry, this thing keeps jumping. I think sometimes fans feel like artists owe them their lives just because they bought an album or two, but I've never followed her career. Okay. And then so yeah, I think I said with Drake, he said he's taking a break for a year, which I think he needs to. Like, I think you put out too much content too much. There's no room for growth artistically. You're a machine at this point. And we talked about that on one of the R&B is Dead videos from years ago, where there was the article where the music exec was saying that artists, if they want to make more money, they need to just put more material out more frequently. And I'm like, no, that's I mean, I get the money conversation, but no, that burns the artist out. Then the music starts to become lackluster. And we're not a very forgiving society with music. Once people are done with you, they're done with you. So, you don't want to fall too far off the wagon, because once they move on, they move on. And then somehow 20 years later, everybody loves you again because you're now a legacy act and you can tour again. But that first time period when you finally fall off, it's kind of quiet for 10 to 15 years. Right. Oh God, y'all, please can we not do Beyonce and Michael tonight? That's gonna be another fight. But I will say, like I said on my Beyonce Michael Jackson video, they can exist in I think with music artists, you're gonna have to look at them in parallels. Otherwise, not parallels, I'm sorry, in spectrums. When you put them in parallels and make them measure up against each other, I just think what it ends up doing is it chips away. Everybody's legacy gets chipped away at something. But when you can put people in a spectrum and say, okay, well, this person shines at this person shines at that, this person shines at this, and then it puts it in a space where you're not measuring stat for stat for stat. So I know, like, I was saying this to somebody else the other day. Who was it? So even like the whole Beyonce and Taylor Swift thing, and they were both on these big, massive stadium tours, and people were trying to like compare the two. And I see nothing similar with either of them other than the fact that they're both mainstream, mega, huge artists. Artistically, there's nothing about them that's similar. Performance-wise, there's nothing about them that's similar. They're not even peers, in my opinion. Beyonce's from a different generation. Taylor comes after the era of Beyonce, in my opinion. Like, so it's just like, I don't like the idea of always trying to make everybody measure up to somebody else. Because that's even like with Drake, with him, surpassing or tying the Michael Jackson record. You got people running out here thinking Drake is now bigger than Michael Jackson, which he never has been. Like, you know what I mean? So yeah. And I think for Beyonce, I think people have to let her exist in her own space as Beyonce. When you constantly, and this is not to any of you guys, but when you constantly measure her up to Michael, it will always chip away from what she could be. And Beyonce will never be able to just exist as Beyonce on her own, because she's always going to be compared to somebody else. She's always going to have to be in comparison to Michael. In the same way that I said, I think one of the reasons Janet is always left out of musical conversations is because people put her in a parallel between Michael and Madonna. And because Madonna is the biggest selling female artist of all time, and Michael is Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, no matter how many wonderful accolades she has, they're always gonna pale in comparison to the two people that they sandwich her in between. Like, that's just how I've always looked at politics. So everything should be in a parallel. That's just me, right? Let's see. Somebody said, if no one's fainting, you're not MJ. But to be honest, people faint at a lot of these concerts. People were fainting at the Beyonce show. In that Janet documentary, folks were fainting at the Janet tour. I get it though. I get that argument. But I like all these people. So it's when people start trying to pit them all against each other, I be getting mad, because it's like, listen, y'all are taking the fun out of this. Like, I enjoy all of these people. Taylor's not included in that, and that's not any shade to her. She's just not my type. But as far as like everybody else, like all the R&B legends and stuff, those are my people. So I'd be feeling some kind of way when y'all start dragging them. All right. Jonathan Cooper said, I'm so glad the Renaissance tour is over. Now that we can get ready for the DC5 2025 tour, Destiny Worldwide. I don't think they're actually going to do it. But you know what? When I was at the event, like I said, I got to meet Susan Taylor from Essence. And you know, Essence has Essence Festival. I should have brought that up to her when I was talking to her. Like, who's the lineup for July? Who y'all bringing out? um, let's see. Somebody said, I thought we canceled Basketball Wives. I've never watched that show. I wouldn't even know what we're talking about here. Um, let's see. Somebody said 1989 is a bop, no skips. I like the Shake It Off song. That was fun. You know, that was cool. I don't really listen to her music like that. I don't have any of her albums. Um, I'm also not the target demo for her, so that might make sense as to why I don't listen to her. Um, let's see. Let me make sure I got everything before we, because we're gonna wind down and just chop it up in the chat. I just want to make sure I didn't skip anything. Oh yeah, congrats to Simone Biles and Coy Young. Simone Biles just got another gold medal, and Coy Young, that's the black man. He just actually got a silver medal. I think it was like a world championship gymnastics award. So good for them. Excellent. We love to see it. All right, so I'm gonna wind down. We'll chop it up for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna call it a night. I need to still make sure I got all my stuff together for the rest of this week. It's been a night, y'all. Let me see. Somebody said talented versus mediocre. I know who that's about, and I'm gonna mind my business. But no, if that's in regard to Beyonce versus Taylor, like I just, as a live performer, Taylor does nothing for me. Y'all, yeah. But I did like that the stage she had on the tour had all these really cool, you know, I guess people would say it's smoke and mirrors, but that part looked cool. But I'm good on her. And it's also not because she's white, because honestly, like there were other white girls that I actually like kind of went up for at one point. Like when I was little, Britney Spears was everything. But I was definitely a TRL kid. I thought Britney was pretty dope. Yeah, I liked Britney back in the day. In the country world, I always liked Shania. Taylor, for some reason, and maybe by the time she came out, no, because I was probably, when did Taylor came out in what, 06? Yeah, I was only like 18, so I'm in that. Well, actually, she and I aren't far in age. We're only like a year apart. I don't know. She just didn't do it for me. I even like Katy Perry. I could stomach some of the Katy Perry songs because at least they were fun. Um, um, have you talked about Kirk's documentary or Carrie's book? I talked about the Kirk doc on the last live. I actually just got a chance to listen to the album. It's okay. Um, yeah, so I just checked out the album today. Somebody said "Shake It Off" was all right. No, I thought "Shake It Off" was actually a fun song. I was like, okay, that's fun. I like the video for that one too. I was like, okay. Eric Williams said they all fainted from heat. LOL. That was really the thing of people getting squished, especially in them standing room only shows. That's why a lot of people were passing out at these shows. I would like to see a Destiny's Child reunion. I think that would be fun. Even if it's not a full tour, even if they did like a one night only kind of special, like I don't know, like they book Madison Square Garden, it's a one night only, and then it airs on Netflix or something. I think that would be dope. I don't know if they're ever gonna do another album. And then if it's like the one night only thing, they could even have like the rotations with the different lineups. Like maybe it could have like the original four, and then they swap with Farris probably not gonna be there, so then they can swap with just the three, and then they can do one with the five together. That'll be dope. Oh yeah, Christina Aguilera, she was all right with me too. She was okay. Maya Mia said book club. Yes, next book club session is October 30th, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're reading chapters 6 through 9 of The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. Maya said Katy Perry only. Now you know Katy Perry has 2.5 good songs only, and that's being generous. Wait a minute. Now hold on. She got a few I like. What did I like from her? Um, Wait, I'm taking too long to think. Hold on, give me a minute. Oh, I did like the swish swish song. I thought that was kind of funky. I like something with some kicks, so that was cool. I like the birthday song. It wasn't really a hit, but I thought that was a fun song. What else does Katie have? That Teenage Dream song wasn't too bad. Same with Firework. Oh, was it Black Horse, Dark Horse? That's 5. We had 5. Those are probably the 5 I liked. She might have 1 or 2 more. I thought that was okay. I didn't follow her. I didn't follow her like that either. I just, this is you just heard her on the radio all the time. Um, let's see. Oh, Pink. I rock with Pink. Now Pink be singing down. Like Pink is a great singer. Um, anyway, I told you guys who I've really been into lately. It's this guy. His name is like Q. What's his name? Let me see. He has that song Stereo Driver that I just absolutely love. Oh, I guess he just goes by. Oh, I mean, I play it. I don't got time for YouTube trying to get me. I guess he goes by Q, but his last name is like Martin or something like that. But he has a song called like Love. Well, I thought it was a fun danceable track. Let me see. It's called Love. I know I want this for real. I thought that was a really dope song when it dropped. And then that song Stereo Driver is it's still one of my favorite songs, and it's been out for a few months. So I've really enjoyed that project. Of the newer music, because y'all always be claiming I only listen to stuff from 50,000 years ago. I also like, let me see here. The Victoria Monet album I've enjoyed a little bit. That song Switch from Destin Conrad I like. I like Tyler the Creator's Dogtooth. I really enjoy October London, the dude that sounds like Marvin Gaye. I really enjoyed everything he has out. His voice is very relaxing to enjoy or listen to. Excellent. Let's see what else have I been listening to. I like that Khalid song, Softest Touch. I like who else? Slim and Faith Evans and Eric Bellinger have a song, Gotta Have Faith, that isn't too bad. I said this before. The Weeknd, Playboy Cardi, and Madonna have a song together that I think is actually dope. It's called Popular. Now, to me, it sounds like Janet Jackson's Island Life, but it's a dope song. I like that one. Who else am I listening to? Jesse Boykins, Kind and Nasty. That's for after 11 o'clock. What else? That Water song by that Tyler Girl's not too bad. Leon Thomas, Treasure in the Hills is pretty cool. John Vinyl, the song Wasted. So some of these new folks I try to keep up with. So there's some okay music that's out there. I mean, I still have my favorites, right? My favorites that are going to be there forever. But, as a lot of my favorite entertainers are slowing down and retiring or specifically just focusing on touring, I'm trying to get into some of the newer acts. Oh, yeah, y'all know Duckworth is one of my favorites. I hope YouTube does something about the ads. They got to change how they do this. Calvin, you're on to something. 435. That would be the concert. Even the numbers could be the title of the concert. Yeah, I would enjoy that. That would be really, really cool. It'd be a lot of fun. We need to call it Black Horse Forever now. All right. Oh, thank you, Gavin. Wait a minute. How y'all done deleted the comment here? I don't know what he said, but thank you, Gavin. Oh, Lord. Okay. Let's see. Oh, Jalil, thank you. The Shandella's got a song that just came out that I have enjoyed. I just heard it like 2 days ago. And mind you, I felt all super cool because I didn't realize one of the Shandellas follows me on Twitter. I was like, oh, wait, look at me having important people following me. They have a song called Last Night Was Good for My Soul. That is a fun song. Shandellas, I enjoy that. That's a great one. Excellent. Let me see. Yeah, that's a fun song. I had a great time with that one. Oh, and there's a singer. His name is Kamari. He has this ballad I like called like These Four Walls, a color show. That's a really nice ballad as well. If you're like into more so like ballads again. What did he say? Thank you. Let's see. He said, okay, I don't know what that's about, but all right. Have I listened to Leon? Oh, I think did I say one of his songs on here that I like? Leon Thomas. There's like two songs I added to my playlist that I like. I said Treasure in the Hills. Yeah. There's another one. I think it's a little bit older, but it's called Crash and Burn. I like that one too. Let's see. I'm gonna block somebody. I don't even want to know what was happening. I'm gonna leave it alone. um, Love Holly Bailey's new song. Is that the Angel song? Or is there another one? I did like Angel. I thought it was different. That's what I liked about it. Like I like when people try to do something different. I think in music, I need more than one trend at a time. I think that's why, and I said this on that video I did. Oh, by the way, because people keep asking when is the next like R&B is dead. Like I told y'all, I was kind of phasing that series out, and I've kind of phased it into what I call music talk. So if you've seen it, there's been two music talk videos. One was talking about the Billboard bit, and then the last one was the whole thing with Jan Winter, and then how we just went into the conversation of just Black music and the core or at the intersection of race, right? So that's kind of the next wave I'm going into. Is more so like it's just called music talk, and I can kind of jump and dive into different conversations and aspect of music that way. Just because I didn't want to keep pushing the title or the narrative of R&B actually being dead. Because if you actually watch that series, by the time we got to like episode 10, we were more so just talking about the music industry, but it was just grandfathered in with the title. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, Portia, can you update us about your film? Yeah, so pull over so I can hit you. I appreciate y'all for helping to support. Um, so like we said, we filmed in December and we were into the editing, and the goal was to I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not. We had a certain goal that we were trying to do in regards to like a conversation around what we were submitting it for. And because we filmed at the end of December, there were some deadlines that we had already missed. And so we said, let's restructure and aim for 2024 with the things we want to jump into. So we're going to jump into those things coming into the spring and the summer. And then right after that, we'll figure out a distribution deal to get it on one of the platforms. But yeah, it's been filmed. The cast was excellent. I had so much fun. Lorinda Hawkins was excellent to work with. She's the lady that plays my mother. Bobby McGee was excellent at playing my father. Now, mind you, the script is loosely based on my Pull Over So I Can Hit You podcast episode, but it's not the actual episode. So it's changed around. It's more of a fictional narrative that's influenced or inspired by that podcast episode. Brett Johnson plays me, the younger version of me, which is kind of cool to kind of hang out with you on set. And then this kid Zion Robinson plays my younger brother, and so the cast was a lot of fun to work with. We shot in LA over the course of 3 days. Well, we shot in LA, La Crescenta, Glendale, La Cañada, the USC campus, and a few other places. A lot of fun. I had a crew of about. You don't realize how big these things are until you really jump into them. I had a crew of about 25, 30 people. The director I work with, she is on her stuff. She was excellent to work with. She's actually my writing partner. So we're working on a bunch of other things as well. And so, yeah, so we did that. And so at this point, what we're doing is cleaning up some green screen stuff, because a lot of it takes place in a car. And so we shot live footage at the locations, but we also shot on a sound stage with the green screen. So kind of putting those two worlds together is a little bit of work, but I'm excited about it coming out. So there's actually a few things I've been working on. I've just learned to keep quiet until stuff comes out. So, 2024 is going to be a great time. Great question. Great question. And then we did have a mixer for like the donors that were on our Indiegogo, because you guys did help to raise, I forgot how much I raised. So you helped us with about a third of the budget, and then the other 2/3 have come out of my pocket. But so we did like this nice mixer, and then we had a giveaway, and there was somebody who won something. So it's been good. So for those who supported, thank you so much. All right. All right. Let's see. Looking forward to more music content. Yeah, I actually, really, to be honest, that's my favorite stuff to make. It takes a lot of work. I'd rather talk music than politics anytime, because politics, we're never all going to agree on anything politically, right? Ever. Politics brings out the ugly side of humanity, right? And so I can talk politics, but I don't prefer talking about it too often because I don't feel like arguing with people, and I don't feel like um Politics, sometimes things can get misconstrued or misinterpreted, and then people take a narrative and run with it. Like politics is it's grimy. And I'm a nice person. Like I am a happy soul. Like I'm happy. Like life is it's cool right now. It's been better, but life is cool right now. And so I don't always want to bombard myself with all the heavy weights of the world. But I also love history. And I love conversations around humanities. I love everything about geography. Look, I wanted geography be in fifth grade. Like I love everything about world affairs. So it automatically pulls you into politics. And also because I'm just heavily tied into, wanting Black people collectively to get what is rightfully ours. And I want us to thrive and succeed. And I want the world to be a better place. You end up having to talk about politics. So yeah, I love to talk music content. I had a great time making that Jan Winter video. Like there were so many cool things in there. And there was so much more I wanted to say, but the video was already like, I was like, dang, you make these videos so long. But I think it's because I'm obsessed with context. I get a lot of criticism because they're like, your videos are too long. Like, chop them down. Why do because I think somebody was annoyed. Like when I did my So What Happened on, I think Toni Braxton, and we started talking about the bankruptcy, and they're like, I rock with you, but dang, you randomly went from Toni to Cher to Tina Turner, and then you went to the Jackson 5, and then you went to Tina Marie, and then you went to Mary Wells. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm giving examples of how the music industry screwed a lot of people over. So to put things in a context, so we get it all, I'm all about context. We got to set the scene, right? So yeah, music content is fun. So What Happened, as much as I hate making them, I love when they're finally done because I'm like, oh, they're usually a good watch. And yeah, they help to kind of the purpose of So What Happened is to more so protect the legacy of a lot of artists. Because I think a lot of times people who haven't been around to experience certain eras, they get a warped perception of something and then they run with it and have these terrible opinions and really they had it all wrong. And so there's always this idea that if an album doesn't do well, it's because the music wasn't good. And a lot of times there's always something behind the scenes that happens. So, the next episode is Mariah when it finally does come out. And like Glitter gets all this smoke, but if you guys listen to the album, it was actually a pretty dope album. It was pretty fun. Lots of up-tempo, funky tracks and some good ballads. We'll get to it when that episode comes out. So yeah, I love talking music. Oh, and then what made me so mad, the Jan Winter video. There's a segment in there. Now, I still wrote the names of the songs down. I had like a whole 8-minute segment. I don't know how it got cut when I made the final edit, but when I talked about songs that had the early elements of what would be rock and roll as far as the rock and roll formula as we got into the 60s, I had this list of songs with the clips of the people performing the songs, and it was a list of songs from between 1941 and 1949, or actually 46, but one of them was from 1949. And somehow, I don't know how it didn't it got deleted on accident. I must have been editing and hit backspace or something, and that whole segment was deleted. So when we were watching it together live, I'm like, wait a minute, this just jumped somewhere. But fortunately, everything still made sense. I was so mad though. I'm like, dang. Avocado Queen said, why does politics have to be so triggering? I think it's triggering because it affects people, like for some people, politics doesn't make a difference between their today and their tomorrow. But for other people, some people end up becoming like collateral to a lot of things, And I just think because you have a country of 300, and I think it's like 40 million now, 330, 340 million people who are all fighting for the same collective resources. Politics gets in the way. You see the nasty side. You see how people move. It's just, it's not good. I try to talk from a very nuanced approach politically, but I mean, people are going to say I'm biased because I make it no secret that there's politicians I don't like. So, but politics is, I always say, you can be friends with anybody until you talk race and politics. Then that's when you see how people stand on things, All right, so we'll hang for a few more minutes because it's been 3 hours. And then we'll call it a day. Somebody said Calvin Michaels. First, by the way, y'all, I want y'all to understand, like Avocado Queen and I, we're here. We've had good conversation when I do the Zoom parties. So I appreciate people who like to shake the table on the lives. It makes it interesting. So yeah, we're good. We've been riding together for years. Same thing. Where's Belize Gal? I don't know if she's on here tonight. The same way Belize Gal be frying up my favorite artist all the time. It's all in fun. Well, yeah, it's all in fun and all in healthy dialogue. So there's never, I want y'all to know there are never any hard feelings on my end when you guys disagree with me on something. It's never going to be hard feelings because I get it. Everybody has a right to see the world how they want to see it, to feel how they want to feel, even if we don't disagree. It's my channel. I'm gonna say what I want, but I'm not gonna ever I'm never gonna ban somebody from the chat because they don't agree with me. Like, I'm not that pressed. Somebody said he donated $50 and you didn't listen to a song. I don't know what happened, what y'all was doing. Maybe I can find. I don't know. Let's see. As a Gavin Magnus fan, why aren't you listening to his song? I don't know what this is about. I'm so lost here, y'all. K Michelle is a goat, like greatest of all time. I like K Michelle. I like Maybe I Should Call. That's my favorite song by her. And but I Miss You Goodbye. Those are my two favorites from her. Let's see. It's more just the industry at large, as we know. Um, that I think is dying. And in my opinion, that's a good thing. Labels keep trying to push the next star instead of actual artists. Yeah, I think somewhere along the lines, as we got into the age of social media and the age of the digital slash streaming industry and the age of the old guard in music phasing out, everything just hasn't really quite aligned right now. And so you can't run the industry with the old formula because is now dated in a world like, because I said that on my Billboard music talk, how I've always felt the music industry was always playing catch up to what was happening in the world, and so it's still a reflection of that. But like I said, there's lots of great artists out there. I just wish there was better ways to discover them. If I were like wealthy, I would definitely start a TV network. um and it wouldn't just play music videos, but it would like definitely have. I think there needs to be more performance-based TV shows, like shows kind of like an Arsenio Hall have to kind of make an appearance again. I would definitely have a lot of shows like that. I would do all of the things that I used to love about a VH1 or an MTV when they were a bit more educational in music. Same with BET. Like I would do that kind of stuff if I had the money to do that kind of channel, because I think there just has to be more outlets for artists, right? Let's understand, even in music, I think there's 40 million songs added to Spotify every year. So music is heavily saturated right now. So yeah. I would love to know your opinion on fans making AI covers for music artists, from promotions art to music singles. Does it help or hurt the artist? I'm not a fan of AI at all. I don't like that they're taking like dead people and making the, oh, this is how Whitney would sound and singing this. Like right now it seems all fun, but watch that become an industry. And AI, to me, they're going to need to do some regulation with that, because AI is about to be a problem. You're about to see a lot of jobs get replaced real soon, not just in music, but in everything. Um, yeah, we're now in a space where like there's AI pictures and art, and you don't know if it's real or fake sometimes, depending on how good the software is. And so I can see people being falsely accused of things through, or even like the what you call the deep fake videos. Like I can see a lot of people end up in spaces where they're charged criminally for things they haven't done, but some kind of AI technology painted the picture. Like, so I'm nervous about all of that. Somebody said you can't argue with insane, just walk away. That's me on social media. If you follow me on Twitter, my bio says I don't argue on Twitter. See, then keep it moving. Like I'm not arguing with y'all. I'm gonna say how I say, say what I feel, and we gonna keep it moving. Like nobody is running up my blood pressure. Like absolutely not. Because every time I start tweeting something, some loony person comes in there ready to fight. And I'm like, oh, okay, you got it. It's your world. We just living in it, and I go on back to my merry way. Um, Somebody said, so what happened is the new behind the music. I would love if some of these people would let me interview them, but it's so hard getting through to some of these people in their management. They'd be like, nope, whatever. I'm not sharing anything, but I had this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful idea that I am still trying to make happen, but it would include myself and a bunch of other YouTube creators. And I think it's a brilliant idea. I just need buy in from the other YouTube folks. And the reason I want buy in from the other YouTube folks is I think getting multiple opinions on what it is I'm trying to do would be super, super dope. And I think it'll be really great in regard to like music, culture, all that kind of stuff. But y'all just say a prayer. Y'all pray my strength. All right. Can you protect your voice from AI? I don't know what the rules are yet. There are some artists that are like putting things out there and, you know, different lawsuits and stuff. But right now, there's not a lot of regulation on it right now. Like, so in the same way, we saw what was happening with the actor strike that's still going. And even a writer strike. Like one bit of the writer strike was they were trying to use AI to replace writers, right? And then even with the actor strike, one of the things that they're trying to do, like having people submit headshots and stuff when they audition, and then those headshots can be used for the likeness of a project. So maybe somebody doesn't get a role, but that headshot has been submitted, and now you use the AI, and now that has somebody being a background actor, and then your your image is being used, but you're not being compensated or credited. Like that's kind of the reality. So like that actor strike is there's a lot going on. Yeah. Calvin, have you trademark copyrighted your face to protect your brand from AI? They got my stuff all over the internet at this point. And then again, listen, anybody who went and did any of those little apps where you had the AI and ooh, look how I would look if I was a nurse. They got all y'all stuff. Them dang terms and conditions. Ooh. And AI has been here for a good minute, but for some reason they just like skyrocketed in the last few months. All right, you guys, can I go to bed? I think I picked my mom up at 9 in the morning. I think. Yeah, I think she gets in at 9, so I better not be late. I don't want to get fussed at. Um, Let me see here. Um, I would like to see a Where Are They Now shows with 90s and 2000s reality shows and shows like MTV's True Life. There's a YouTube channel that kind of does like a Where Are They Now type thing. It's cool. I would do it differently, but hey, it's working for them. And I do like that they bring up people that you really weren't even thinking about. Like, oh, I totally forgot about that person. So I'm like, okay. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna look. This thing is not about to come on. Anyway, I'm about to call it a night. Um, gonna get me some rest because hey, like I said, I got back from New York today, or now I actually yesterday now. Anyway, so we will catch up. I will try to squeeze something in as far as content between now and next week. Like I said, it's me and mama time, so I'm getting my mama time in. And I got some other things I need to manage and take care of, and I got some events and stuff I'm hosting. So I'll be a little booked for like the next 2 weeks. But anyway, have a good night. Stay safe, stay sane, mind your business so you can age well. Good night, folks.